Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Thursday, August 29th, 8:46 a.m. And this is the day after Nvidia earnings. Nvidia Q2 was yesterday, biggest day of the year. Definitely biggest day of the year so far in the broader stock market. We got through earnings. Earnings is done. As I'm Beneficial says, kind of survived earnings. We'll see what happens with the stock. But all of that pain, all of that pressure, all of that craziness we went through over the past couple of days, all of that analysis we were doing just for Nvidia to be at $120 right now. Look, I know it's down 3%, but I mean, the volatility was expected to be 10% up or down on Nvidia. To see it open at 121, and we have a lot to talk about Nvidia. We have a lot to go through on it. There's a reason why you see these green candles right now. We have a lot of macro data that we're going to actually start off with, because I woke up and I forgot at 8:30 we were getting a crap ton of macro data. So literally 20 minutes ago, I just realized, holy crap, we have so much data to go through. That's why we're getting a little bit of green on Nvidia right now, along with the fact that investors realized when it tanked about 8% last night, Nvidia is not a bubble, and they're doing $30 freaking billion a quarter in revenue. And maybe, just maybe AI is real. And if they're raising guidance to 32.5 billion, we need to take them seriously. I think this was one of those quarters that was a rock star quarter. There's a lot to discuss and a lot to dissect around that quarter. But the core thing about the quarter is that it kind of just feels like the reason the stock tanked after hours was because the stock was up a lot year to date, not because there was a fundamental thesis breaker in Nvidia. So it's just hilarious that we went through all of that for Nvidia to be opening right here at 120, which is what it was at a month ago. It was at a couple of weeks ago. It was at right after the August 5th scenario when it rebounded. Like, Nvidia's been in this range for at least basically since, call it post-split, which was June. So from June to the end of August, we went through all of this just to see Nvidia back here at these same levels. So a lot to talk about for Nvidia. Openai is raising at $100 billion. Apple is ordering 10% more inventory. Palantir, some news on Palantir came just this morning. They ranked number 1 in the Forrester AI ML platforms report. So we're going to talk about that, discuss it, see what ends up happening. And then we've got some macro data. So I think let's get started with the macro data, because that macro data is pretty damn exciting. I forgot we had this macro data, and some of this macro data is actually helping a lot. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Gene, Arlie, Clive, Brian, Ryan, David, June, Blake, what's up? What's up? Chris, Danger, what's up? Thank you for being here. Brian, Z, Gerald, Ricardo, Ray, GE, thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for joining the stream yesterday as well. It was an important stream, Nvidia earnings. I think at one point we had about 10,000 people watching live. So really appreciate anyone who joined the stream yesterday and was getting the coverage from the channel in the context of Nvidia earnings. And I think the earnings ended up being pretty good. All right, so macro data. I literally, because I was up till 2 a.m. tweeting about Nvidia. I mean, I was tweeting about Nvidia. I was going through the numbers. Like I was obsessed with Nvidia last night, going through a lot of stuff. I forgot we had a ton of macro data. This macro data is really good, dude. This macro data is really good. Like I mean, you could not ask for better macro data, which is why the market is green. S&P is up 0.31%. Palantir is up 0.56%. Robinhood right now is breaking the levels that it was at. It's at 2055. It's higher than the levels it was at on Monday when it broke out a little bit. And that macro data, I think we'll go one by one. Let's do the first one. That's the most important. GDP growth. Last time, remember, we got GDP under 2%. It came in at 1.4%. Well, apparently, I didn't even know this was a thing. There's a revision. And I guess the people that revised it. People thought, consensus thought it would be 2.8%. Fam, we came in at 3%. 3% quarterly growth for Q2. Also, we'll talk about CrowdStrike and Salesforce. I forgot about those, but I dug into their earnings last night, so we'll talk about that as well later in the show. But 3% growth. I mean, like, how are you growing 3% and you're also saying we have a recession? Again, I'm trying to be very objective here. If we have 3% GDP growth and we got some unemployment data, we'll talk about it as well, but that unemployment data came in as cold. I don't see the recession. I don't see the consumer, if 70% of US GDP is based on the consumer and GDP just got revised to 3%, up from 1.4%, more than double. I don't know how the consumer is in that horrible of a situation. I'm not saying the consumer's not weakening. I'm not saying the labor market's not weakening. I'm just saying for a recession to happen, you need mass layoffs. And then all those layoffs need to implicate the bottom line for consumers. And it just doesn't seem that's happening. It just doesn't seem that's happening right now. So this begs the question, is the Fed going to do 25 bips or 50 bips? Well, we're definitely not doing 50 bips. You're not going to get 50 bips with a 3% GDP print because that means the economy is strong. But it's not like 8 months ago where if we got this type of reading, it would be, oh my God, good news is such bad news because we need to get inflation down. We need to get people to stop growing. And in order for people to stop growing and consuming, we need to like force this pseudo recession. Therefore, this good print, AKA economy that's growing, is bad because of this boogeyman that is inflation. Well, inflation's falling off a cliff. Mind you, oil prices that were skyrocketing because of geopolitical issues on Monday, they're down 4% since then, or about 3% since then. Right now at 75, they were at hovering over $80, especially Brent. WTI was at 79 on Monday. So oil's starting to come down, shelter's starting to come down. We have all these other things that are starting to come down. So from that perspective, we're probably going to get 25 bips. We're not going to get 50 bips, but this is the scenario that we've all been waiting for. GDP growth is good. Unemployment is not rapidly accelerating. And then inflation's coming down. And then on top of that, you get a rate cut and you get Nvidia that crushes earnings. You get all 5 of those things happening together. I'm trying to be as data focused as possible to come to these conclusions. I don't see where this crazy recession is that people are forecasting. Now, what are the other pieces of data we got outside of GDP? Krupa, thank you for becoming a channel member. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Krupa Patel, for becoming a channel member. Thank you for that, Krupa. Here are the other 3 pieces of data we have. Initial jobless claims, 231,000 versus 232,000. So the market was expecting about 232,000. We came in less than expected. We're still losing 232,000 jobs a week. Recession is more 350,000 jobs a week. So we're still comfortably under that level, but we missed at 231 versus 232, even if it was a slight miss. So that's 2 weeks in a row where you miss on initial jobless claims. Then PCE prices quarter over quarter, 2.5% versus 2.6. Another miss, which is good. That means inflation's continuing to come down. Last time we had 3.4%. And then core PCE came in at 2.8% versus 2.9%. Last time was 3.7. It's one of those things where you put it all together and you're like, well, wait a second. Nvidia crushed. A lot of these other companies are crushing. We'll go through some of the earnings we have this morning. The consumer's spending. Maybe they're not spending at Starbucks anymore, but all right, that's Starbucks' problem. That's Nike's problem. That's McDonald's problem. The other, fast food chains, restaurants, Kava is not having an issue. Maybe people just want Mediterranean food over burgers and fries, right? Like maybe those are the explanations versus the sort of simplistic narratives of, okay, we're heading into some massive recession. I'm not discounting a recession at all. I still think there's a possibility for that. It's just day by day, week by week, month by month, looking at the data. Earnings growth is strong. GDP growth is higher than expected by more than double. Inflation's coming down on PCE and core PCE, and then jobless claims are not rapidly accelerating. We got some good data, man. We got some good macro data. This is the macro data we needed. This is the macro data that was important. And this is the macro data that I think is going to hopefully help the markets continue to do what they're doing. Robinhood right here, $20.55 right now in the pre-markets. Even Bitcoin loves this, dude. Bitcoin was stuck at 50, basically 58.5 to 59 over the past couple of days after getting flushed out on Tuesday by 6%. If you bought the dip, I put $100 in at 59,000. So I'm up on that $100. But if you more seriously bought the dip at 59.58, you're up right now. And I think it's because Nvidia earnings were good and the macro data was good so far. Maybe that was the last flush before a real bull run. I was, talking to some crypto people and they said, hey, we thought that last flush, it was more algorithmic. It happened. It was over. And now we're ready to move on. Then again, that's what they've been saying for the whole summer. So I don't know. This one's still a little complicated. But the fact that Bitcoin's pumping on good macro data is very good because it's showing that rate cuts probably will be bullish for the broader crypto ecosystem. Affirm. We'll go deeper into them later. This is another reason, sticking on this macro segment that we're on right now. How is a buy now, pay later company? I'll say that again. Buy now, pay later, meaning you get the shit for free, basically, until you have to pay. How is that company up 24% when we're about to enter into a massive global recession? Because the whole pay later part of the buy now, pay later part, that's not going to happen in a recession. No one's going to pay you later. They're going to say, see you later. They're not going to pay you later because no one's going to have the money because there's going to be too many credit defaults and delinquencies in order to repay the buy now, pay later loan. So, I mean, I don't think if the market's forward looking, how the hell, I looked at the numbers of, Affirm had good numbers. It's not like the numbers were bad. Good user growth, transaction growth, GMV growth, all that stuff. but 24% up, really? This is one of the most riskiest companies. It's literally buy now, pay later. Like the last part of their business, the predicate of their business does not happen. If we get into a recession, that stock's up 24%. Like the market appetite and the risk appetite seems to be adjusted for the fact that the market thinks we're not going to have a recession. And if we're not going to have a recession, at least at these levels that we're at right now, I think that, that's probably going to be stronger for the market. And they're not going to be as concerned as what's happening right now. Cause Why Not says, to be fair, if the thesis is that the consumer is fine because they're using buy now, pay later as a form of debt, then that would be potentially bad. I agree. And I'm not disagreeing that credit card debt is stacking up. My point is just the market's smarter than that. They know, they're looking at more data at hypersonic speeds than we are looking at. They know that the only reason buy now, pay later might be succeeding is because of consumer credit debt and consumer delinquencies going up. Therefore, they're not going to be able to pay back the debt, which means they price that in, which is what I got a lesson of last night about things being priced in. And we'll talk about that in a second. But if it's priced in, there's no way a firm is worth 24% more than it is yesterday based on the idea that credit debt is the reason the consumer is strong, because eventually the chickens come home to roost and they're not going to pay back the money. And then a firm is just going to have tons of losses, right? So that earnings itself, I saw that last night and I was like, wow, that earnings almost made it seem like investors knew GDP was going to come in at 3%, which would, hedge back against the argument that we'd be heading into a recession. So someone says, is Amit actually gay? No, I'm not actually gay. Goodness gracious. This is, we got these new people joining the chat. Shout out to the new subscribers that joined yesterday. Welcome to the channel. We do a market open every single day. You are going to find out a lot of things about my personal life, including that I'm supposedly gay and it's my birthday every single day. And those are just two out of many things that this chat is going to convince you of very soon. But in general, dude, it seems like we got a good set of data this morning around the macro. And it just looks like all this data is starting to hit back against this idea of a recession. And I think that's important. Nike's up a little bit. Ulta's up a little bit. Elp is up a little bit. Airbnb is up 0.5%. Abercrombie, they got demolished yesterday, down 17%. And again, they said nothing about the consumer. All they did was put up amazing results and raise guidance. Street took them down 17%, likely because I think it's just up a lot and the Street needed a little bit of a break with them. And so they're up a little bit right now in the pre-markets, but they were down 17% yesterday. Tesla getting a bit up 1.36%. SoFi up 2%. Best Buy, we'll talk about their earnings. I've said, hey, I really like Best Buy. I don't own it, but I saw an interview last quarter with the CEO talking about their AI strategy. And I really like the CEO. Like the way she actually explained AI for a retailer to me was one of the best explanations of implementing AI in a retail business. Stock's up 15% right now because they raised guidance, put up good numbers. Best Buy cannot be up 15% if people are not buying shit from Best Buy. People are buying shit from Best Buy, maybe because we're not in a recession or going into a recession. Again, a lot of data just pushes back against the recession narrative right now. Nvidia, where's Nvidia doing right now? Nvidia is slightly down about 3.5%. And then where's all the semi stocks? They are all, oh wow, I thought all of them would be down. Intel's up, ASML is up. ASML had some news in the Netherlands this morning. Lam Research is up a little bit. Micron's actually up a little bit. The rest of them are down, but they're down slightly. SMCI, this one, unfortunately, this one's down another 3% after being down 19% yesterday. But this one's kind of a whole different issue. AMD down about 0.5%, and then Nvidia right here down about 3.39% on the day. How do you explain your Grindr account? Well, I was testing the thesis, dude. I had to figure out if that's a reasonable company to invest in. And I would have if they got below $10, but right now it's at $11.84. I was doing DD. You got to do DD, man. You gotta be able to do your DD. All right, so I think we should talk about Nvidia now. Frank says, what do you think about TEM as a Palantir play for medical? Seems very interesting. I have a position for the long. Love to hear your thoughts. So I have been looking at Tempest AI. I don't know much about them. I haven't had time to do a deep dive. I know this is a big Kathy stock. She's buying a ton of it. I'm a little skeptical of an independent healthcare AI company becoming massive, but that's only because of my ignorance of the company. I haven't really looked into it. The stock's done well, though. So depending on when you've got in, I think you've done well in the stock. Year to date, it's up 47%. So even if you didn't get the absolute bottom, you've probably done well on it. I still have to research what their larger moat is. I do think it's a very interesting company. And I think what they're doing with healthcare and AI is real. This is one of the first standalone companies. That's probably why Kathy's buying it, that actually IPO'd as an AI name, because we haven't seen that. Like we barely seen any IPOs. And so I would imagine the hoops they have to jump through to actually IPO as an AI company in one vertical, aka healthcare, were massive, but I haven't done the research yet. I am bullish on the space, though. I think healthcare and AI is going to be like one of the biggest verticals outside of FSD, robotics, etc. So We'll be doing more DD on that and talking about it over the next couple weeks as well. All right, so let's talk about NVIDIA, not Nvidia. Some of these CNBC analysts going on talking about Nvidia. I'm like, are you kidding me, bro? This is a $3 trillion company. It controls the stock market, and you're saying the name wrong. It's Nvidia. Let's talk about Nvidia, okay? Let's talk about Nvidia. So I have a lot to say about Nvidia. Curious what you guys thought about Nvidia. But I think we'll start off with Nvidia. I got a phone call last night. At approximately 8 p.m.-ish. And the phone call was from an Nvidia bull. And he calls me and he's like, the street's stupid. And I was like, why do you think the street's stupid? Why aren't you stupid? Why is the street stupid? Why is your ego being protected here and you're getting to blame the street? And he says, because blah, 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 blah. And I listen to him. And then I'm getting a call from an Nvidia bear. The bear calls me. And I realize, you know what? All three of us know each other. Why don't we just have a threesome? I mean, a three-way phone call. And so I merged the call. We have a three-way phone call, all three of us guys. And for the next 75 minutes, I end up hearing the bull and the bear case by two people that I really respect. And I come to my own conclusion, which I'll talk about in a second, but let me give you the bull and the bear case of those earnings numbers, okay? One of them said Nvidia is a massive bubble and going to 100 tomorrow, literally. Growth is baked in. They will continue to lower their percentage beats on estimates. This was the lowest percentage beat they've ever had at 3.8%. And AI doesn't have a real use case yet for most companies. It doesn't justify a 46 forward PE, which is the current valuation right now. The other said, well, the street's being dumb and Nvidia gets bought up at $110 easily tomorrow. EPS will be closer to $4 next year and a 40 multiple on that, which you would imagine the street would. If the street's paying 57x for Costco, they would pay 40x for Nvidia. That would get you into the 160s. And that's assuming you only do $4 of EPS, not $5 of EPS, because 4 times 40, you get 160. Hyperscalers won't stop spending on FSD, robotics, etc., which means GPU demand will continue to grow. So my question is, what side of this are you on this morning? Are you on the bull side or are you on the bear side after that earnings? And kind of how do you come down on this stock? And while you guys are commenting that in the chat, let's actually go to the numbers that we got from Nvidia, because I think these were some of the most amazing numbers I've seen in my entire life. Revenue of $30 billion. That's up 122% year over year. Gross margins of 75%. That came down a little bit. That's where the street's struggling a little bit, but that's more so due to the Blackwell delay. And I don't think that's like an ongoing trend. That's, some people are pointing, well, there's a trend. Their margins are decreasing. That more so has to do with Blackwell and the redesign of the architecture they had to do, less to do with like some type of decline trend. But even like, let's just assume it's going down a bit. 75% gross margins on a hardware company is insane. Net income of $16.5 billion. That's up 168% year over year. So that $30 billion they put in revenue, it's not like Walgreens that does $140 billion in revenue and can't make a dime of net profit. Nvidia is doing more than 50% of that $30 billion in net income, aka earnings per share, which is why they beat on EPS at 68 cents versus 64 cents from expectations. And then they guided for the third quarter at $32.5 billion, which means you know what that actually means. They're probably going to do $33.5 billion or $34 billion because they're going to have to beat this number. So the revenue right here at $32.5 billion, that means in 90 days, NVIDIA is going to do more than $10 billion of revenue a month, more than $2.5 billion in revenue a week, and more than half of that, round called 16, 17 billion next quarter in profits. I do not think this earnings was bad at all. And so for those that are wondering where I come up on the side of the bull and the bear was Chris, for those, Chris and Steve, for those who are wondering. So I got Steve on the phone call. He's like, the street's stupid. And I get Chris calling. He's like, no, there's a bubble. And then I'm like, you know what? Let's just have a phone call. And it was a very productive phone call. We got a lot of perspectives, hit back and forth. Everyone made some good points. But at the end of the day, I kind of side on the bull side of this. And the reason for that is because the people saying it's a bubble, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. You could argue the valuation. I don't think it makes sense to say it's a bubble. Now, why do I think it doesn't make sense to say it's a bubble? And, this is kind of like Steve's core thesis on where he sees NVIDIA. His argument was, hey, people missed NVIDIA just like they missed Tesla when Tesla went to $1 trillion. NVIDIA now at $3 trillion. And people, because they missed the run, they're afraid of getting in because they think, this is kind of how I felt with Tesla for a long time. If I missed it, then I'm out and it's not going to grow that much. And everyone else got lucky. They got invested. I just ended up missing it. The problem is, if you felt that way in October 2021 when Tesla was $1 trillion and you FOMO'd in at $414 a share, there were two things going against you. A, interest rates were about to start going up, and that obviously would hurt a company like Tesla. B, FSD wasn't real, right? And like, it's still not actually real in terms of like being out into the real world. And so really you only had declining sales growth, declining volume growth, all that stuff. And then the Tesla stock ends up being dead for the past couple of years. Nvidia is at the epicenter of everything. If you believe AI is the next industrial revolution, if you think ChatGPT matters, if you think more models matter, I'll talk about Jensen's answer as well. If someone asked him about hyperscalers, that was the only question I cared about. I thought he had an amazing response for about 15 minutes. He stayed on this one question. So we'll talk about that. But if you believe in that broader AI thesis, Nvidia is growing. 50% of the revenue is actual net income, $30 billion a quarter. I don't see how that's a bubble. You can argue with the valuation all you want. I have no problem arguing with the valuation. That's a genuine debate. To say a company like that is similar to pets.com, I mean, come on, dude. That's a little, I don't know, dude. I mean, that's a little disrespectful to Nvidia. Again, you can hate the valuation and not own it based on that, but to say it's a bubble that's going to go to $30, $40, because a bubble, to me, the definition of a bubble is a massive collapse at one point, right? And maybe that happens years from now. I'm not denying Nvidia can't collapse years from now, but given their guidance, you can't assume it's happening within the next at least 12 months. You would assume 2026, they're guiding, Street thinks about 180 billion. They're going to put up maybe 165 billion. A company doing $165 billion a year with half of that being net income. I don't know how that's a bubble. It's just harder for me to argue that that's definitely a bubble. So let's do some math on this, right? If they do $5 VPS in 2025, conservative 25 forward PE, that's $125 share price, which is basically where it's at today. So if anything, it's like fairly valued if you assume a little bit of aggressive of an EPS number. So it's not undervalued, overvalued. It's like a fair multiple. If you even give it a 35 PE, which I would imagine the street gives it a higher PE than Costco or Netflix, that's 175. If they do $4 of EPS with a 35 PE, then that's 140, which is still upside from here. So you can play around with the numbers all you want, but the point is to say it's a bubble assumes the stock is going to be cut in half or at least cut down by 30, 40%, which already happened on August 5th. And that was because of a Japanese issue in terms of the carry yen trade, not necessarily because of fundamentals. The growth is going to slow down. It's not going to be 100% year-over-year growth. It's probably going to go to 40 or 50%. But Jensen did say Blackwell revenue will be billions in Q4. We're going to listen to Jensen talk in just a second on Bloomberg when he said this. And if you believe that Blackwell revenue is going to be in the billions, and you think the architecture is coming pretty soon, and that's actually a major catalyst, then it's just hard to imagine that that's like some resounding bubble that everyone needs to be super, super scared about. And as a result, sell all your Nvidia. Because if it's a massive bubble, then it's like, all right, get the hell out of it. You're in this massive overpriced stock. You should take your profits and leave. It doesn't feel like that. Again, can the stock go down? Of course. Like but like on the actual fundamentals, you put a basic PE on it in terms of forward earnings estimates on growth. I think you get a pretty strong level when it comes to what you're getting for Nvidia. So what do you guys think? Bubble or not? What do you guys think? Let's do a poll in the chat. What do you guys think as well? The initial reaction in terms of the stock, honestly, I think that was just because the market was like tired. There's buyer fatigue. The stock's up 150% year to date. People you needed such a gigantic beat that would justify the ability to buy it yesterday. And you didn't get a gigantic beat. You got a pretty damn good beat, but it just wasn't gigantic. And so from that perspective, I think that's why the stock is struggling. Also, here's another thing I think about. I think it's actually nice that the stock's not up 10% because that makes a healthy market. It's seeing Nvidia at 150 today, as fun as it would be kind of like, all right, we're getting a little pricey right now. Like, let's just chill out a bit. Let's have a slow grind to 150. Let's not just have 150 overnight. And by the way, I don't think 150 would be sustainable. That 10%, 15% move to the upside, that probably would get hammered away by all the different points of volatility we had. Now, maybe today it would be sustainable because the macro data we got, if you're just joining, GDP growth at 3%, unemployment, jobless claims came in lower than expected, PCE and core PCE prices came in lower than expected as well. All that macro data would have been really good on a day that Nvidia is up. But we still have the election to deal with. We still have the September 6th jobs report to deal with. We have so much more volatility. I would imagine it's hard for Nvidia to hold 15, 20%, even if it rallied. So it's flat, down a couple percentage points. Okay. I don't know if that means it's a bubble. You can say it's maybe a little overvalued if you want to argue from that perspective, even though it's going to be cheaper as the price keeps declining because now you got all this growth that came in over the past 90 days. But I don't know if it's necessarily a bubble here. You are talking too fast amid subway train speed, hard to grab all of you by trying to communicate. Dude, I'd rather talk fast than slow. So I'm sorry for the people I talk too fast, because I feel like talking slow is just wasting people's time and it's not like getting to the point. So I'd rather talk faster than slower. But my point is here, there's a lot of information to get through. And when you put all this information together, it looks like Nvidia is just crushing it. It looks like Nvidia is absolutely crushing it. I bought at 116 last night and I'm happy. Yeah, I mean, look, if you bought the dip last night at 116, 115, I think you're going to be rewarded over the long term. Maybe you don't get rewarded in September because September is just crappy for everyone. But dude, I mean, like, I'm listening to Jensen talk last night and I'm like, this is real. This is very real. The streets, is going to be the street, but this definitely feels very real. Let's listen to Jensen right now and see what he said specifically on the Blackwell delay. That was the first question he was asked on the Bloomberg interview. I actually didn't like that was the first question he asked. I was watching the interview and like the dude, as soon as he comes on, he's like, he didn't say great quarter, hello Jensen. He just goes straight into this like, so what's going on with Blackwell? Fucker, do you know who I am? It's like, wait a second. I came on your show and you're just going to start interrogating. You're not even going to wish me a good quarter. Like it was kind of weird, dude. As an interviewer, I was just like, that's a pretty aggressive first question. But nonetheless, this is the question everyone cares about. So this is what Jensen had to say about the Blackwell delay.
For our TV and radio audience around the world, joining me now is Jensen Huang, CEO of Nvidia, straight from the analyst call. And Jensen, good evening, good afternoon to you. I think the market wanted more on Blackwell. They wanted more specifics, and I'm trying to go through all of the call and the transcript. It seems like, very clearly this was a production issue and not a fundamental design issue with Blackwell, but the deployment in the real world, what does that look like tangibly? And is there a sort of delay in the timeline of that deployment and thus revenue from that product?
Let's see. That's just
if I was Jensen, I would be like, so you don't want to even congratulate me that I put up 30 billion in revenue? You're just going to go straight to this question that I already talked about. Like, I don't know. It was kind of like, just from if I ever interview someone like that, I would say, hey, great job on the quarter before I just, go straight for their throat. But nonetheless, this is his answer on Blackwell.
The fact that I was so clear and it wasn't clear enough kind of tripped me up there right away. And so let's see. We made a mass change to improve the yield. Functionality of Blackwell is wonderful. We're sampling Blackwell all over the world today. We show people, giving tours to people of the Blackwell systems that we have up and running. You could find pictures of Blackwell systems all over the web. We have started volume production. Volume production will ship in Q4. Q4, we will have billions of dollars of Blackwell revenues, and we will ramp from there. The demand for Blackwell far exceeds its supply, of course, in the beginning, because the demand is so great. But we're going to have lots and lots of supply, and we will be able to ramp starting in Q4. We have billions of dollars of revenues, and we'll ramp from there into Q1, into Q2, and through next year. We're going to have a great next year as well.
Jensen, what is the demand for accelerated computing beyond the hyperscalers and Meta?
Hyperscalers represent about 45% of our total data center business. We're relatively diversified today. We have hyperscalers, we have internet service providers, we have sovereign AIs, we have industries, enterprises. So it's fairly diversified.
This part I didn't know. I didn't know it was only 45% of their customers were hyperscalers. I thought it was a little bit more than that. So it does seem like they have a diversified base, but obviously the hyperscalers are the one that spend the most.
Outside of hyperscalers, is the other 55%. Now, the application use across all of that data center starts with accelerated computing. Accelerated computing does everything, of course, from the models, the things that we know about, which is generative AI, and that gets most of the attention. But at the core, we also do database processing, pre and post processing of data before you use it for generative AI, transcoding, scientific simulations, computer graphics, of course, image processing, of course. And so there's tons of applications that people use our accelerated computing for, and one of them is generative AI. And
so ultimately, you can watch the full interview if you want. I'll put it in the chat. It's about another 9 minutes. But Jensen pretty much said, he goes on to say basically what he said during the earnings call, which is what Sean's comment right here on the screen. He says he's literally telling people to buy the stock. I was so clear with what demand we have, but you don't believe me. Okay, I'll repeat it. I mean, that's kind of how it felt. And it's like, you know, it was one of those things where he's like, dude, like people are really buying our shit. We raised guidance by $2 billion. Like, do you not get what I'm saying? And so I think it's because the stock was down 7%. If the stock was up 7%, which I could have seen it going up 7% or down 7%, I think the interview first would have said, hey, great quarter. I think he would have at least started off by saying great quarter. But second of all, the vibe would have been different because like, oh yeah, 32 billion in revenue, 30 billion, like net income, gross margin 75, like everyone would have been saying it in an optimistic tone. But because the stock was down, it was unoptimistic. And I think that's what a mature investor needs to look at as well. It's like, is the stock going down a reason why I should be upset? Which is the silliest reason to be upset in regards to an earnings call. So I thought Jensen had a pretty good response in regards to what is going on with Blackwell and what that delay means. And as a result, the analyst community tended to agree with what Jensen had to say. Bsaw, thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, for new people, midstreams are informative, fun, broad overview of every stock with new news, host, great guests, and most important, never makes anyone feel stupid, like he knows everything and is always right. Correct. If I don't know something, you guys will know that I am the first person to say I'm stupid on a topic versus trying to assume that I know about it. So thank you, Bsaw, for that $10 super chat. And if you're new to the channel, I know a bunch of you guys joined yesterday. Thank you for being here. And hopefully we have the most fun market open every single day. Now, here's what the analyst community said about this earnings call as well. I saw this morning and I was like, wait a second. All of these guys are excited. Bank of America, buy it. $165. Piper Sandler, buy it. $140. Cantor Fitzgerald, buy it. $175. JP Morgan, buy it. $155. KeyBank, buy it. $180. Goldman Sachs, buy it. $135. Summit Insights, buy, no price target. Jefferies, buy it. $150. Citi, buy it. $150. Stifel, buy it. $165. Mizuho, buy it. $140. Wells Fargo, buy it. $165. Bernstein, $155. Oppenheimer, $150. Edward Jones, hold. That's one of the ones that wasn't as bullish. DA Davidson, neutral, price target 90. Goldman Sachs, buy at 135. So let's read DA Davidson, that has the most bearish of the analysts' perspectives. Nvidia reported strong revenue growth driven by data center, but we remain cautious due to potential headwinds from AI infrastructure build-out cycles and the Blackwell delay. So again, what Jensen just answered on that Bloomberg interview about Blackwell, that's what DA Davidson is using as their like bear case. I just like, this is where this is where I'm like, the analysts are not listening to the call, right? It did not affect their guidance. It did not affect this quarter. And Jensen said, we're going to have billions of Blackwell revenue by Q4. I mean, it's just one of those things where if you put out a bear case on that and don't listen to what the CEO is saying, then you're accusing the CEO of basically lying. And it's like, I don't know. I'd rather trust Jensen over the analysts. While the company is well positioned, our full year 2025 estimates remain below consensus, and we have a model sequential decline in full year 2026, maintaining our neutral rating. Now, what's the difference between them and someone like Bank of America that says, hey, buy it at 165? They say Nvidia delivered a solid Q2 sales of 30 billion, but the Q3 outlook is modestly ahead of consensus and below more bullish expectations, largely due to a Blackwell ramp pushed out by a quarter. We continue to believe Nvidia's growth opportunity as generative AI deployments are just beginning, with next-gen AI models requiring significantly more compute power. We see a compelling valuation and maintain our buy rating. You're either on the side that says, hey, Blackwell's the issue and Nvidia is going to shit the bed and they're not going to get any momentum, or they're going to keep declining. Or you believe that, wait a second, Jensen explained what's going on with Blackwell. We think the revenue is going to keep accelerating. With the growth, definitely going to slow down. It's not going to be at 200% for the next couple of years. But if it slows down, it's slowing down to like 40%. If you're compounding off $150 billion at 40%, I mean, what company is doing that? Like, it's very hard to compound 40% on 150 billion. Those things just don't happen. This is Blackwell from that same interview talking about this is Jensen talking why he believes the company will sell several billion dollars of Blackwell by the fourth quarter.
We made a mass change to improve the yield. Functionality of Blackwell is wonderful. We're sampling Blackwell all over the world today. We show people giving tours to people of the Blackwell systems that we have up and running. You could find pictures of Blackwell systems all over the web. We have started volume production. Volume production will ship in Q4. Q4, we will have billions of dollars of Blackwell revenues. And
so again, right there, if you imagine they're going to have billions of dollars of Blackwell revenue in Q4, then you kind of come to the bullish side of the price targets, because that's going to raise analyst estimates, and that raising of the analyst estimates is only going to lead to a higher EPS number, a higher EPS, even with a very basic forward price to earnings. There you go. You start to get some more momentum in the context of NVIDIA. So in terms of wrapping up at least my core sort of understandings of NVIDIA and the earnings, I think Jensen crushed it. I think they had a great earnings. I think the forward estimates are only going to get better and better. It wasn't a gigantic beat on the top and the bottom line, which is why the street probably didn't take it up another 10%. But it doesn't feel like they needed to do that, given the stock is already up so much this year, and given now it gets to slow down and chill out a little bit. NVIDIA right here down about 2.94%, and kind of take its time as it regains momentum. We needed a quarter that would have one of the best earnings ever for the company, which would, as a byproduct, be able to keep the stock market in check. We got that quarter, even if we didn't get a stock that went up 10%. Now, here's the big thing, and this is the part I think is actually very kind of exciting. What if the market stops thinking NVIDIA is that important? Like, what if the market says, you know what, NVIDIA is like important, but like, because we finally came back to reality this quarter in terms of the earnings were amazing, but like the stock didn't move $300 billion up or down, maybe on the next, because I don't know about you, but I don't love that every single earnings, this one company has the fate of the entire stock market on it. Like, that's just, it's very anxiety producing. I don't think it's healthy. I think we need to have a calmer market that is able to interpret one company inside of the company's vacuum and not have the company determine the basis for the stock market. And so maybe this quarter kind of chills out the market. It's not like NVIDIA is going to get less important, but maybe the market's just not like so on edge every time they report numbers, because it's a company that's growing. It's just not growing like a startup anymore. And that's okay, because it's properly valued now. You could argue fairly valued, maybe a little overvalued, but still at $2.5, $3 trillion, it's a relatively strong company based on the growth that they've got. And so I think maybe this earnings, if it does anything, it allows people to just get less scared about NVIDIA, because it's acting a bit more normal, even though it's still a very, very important company. Now, the company, or the people that lost yesterday on NVIDIA were the option buyers. So if you bought calls, you're dead today. Sorry, GG, it's gone. If you bought puts, unless the stock really tanks, they're probably expiring on Friday. I mean, you're just not going to have the volatility needed to get the puts to print. I mean, you would need a move of about 10% to get the puts to print correctly. There might be some appreciation there, but a lot of it's not going to be as much as if NVIDIA was actually down into that 110, 115 level. And maybe that happens over the next couple of days, but as of now, it looks like it's flat. And so when the stock stays flat, the people that won were people that sold calls, which is what TJ and I did. TJ and I actually sold calls. We sold 500 shares, so 5 calls at 140, picked up, I think, $3 of premium. So basically we would have sold it at 145 if NVIDIA got to 140. Now we do have some puts at 120, and I mean, it seems like it is. If NVIDIA stays flat, that's an easy roll. Maybe NVIDIA's at 119 on Friday. We can roll that out a couple weeks. If NVIDIA is above 120, we can close that out early. Even today, to be honest, I think if it closes on Friday, I'll text TJ. We might be able to get out of those and close it and make 50, 60% of profit. So people who sold options did well on this one. People who bought options, unfortunately, didn't do well, because you need volatility. And we didn't get volatility. And for the broader market, I think that's okay. I think that's okay that we didn't get as much volatility as the market accepted, or the market expected. So there we go. That's what we got. What do we have on the poll? 82% of you said NVIDIA is a real company. 20% said it's a bubble out of 719 votes. I would tend to agree. Shout out to Matt. I know he bought 200 shares, I think at like $120. So Matt's stock pretty much stayed flat. And if he sold calls on it, and if he continues to sell calls on it, should end up doing well for NVIDIA. Dragos, thank you for the $5 super chat. He said, you missed the good days. I saw NVIDIA at 14 and AMD at 250 10 years ago. Fun times. Okay, well, Dragos, did you buy at those levels? I would imagine you bought a little bit. The AMD pisses off Steve the most, because Steve had a lot of shares at $2. But no, he bought it at 5 and then it went to 2. And so he averaged it down to 2. And then when it got back to 5, he broke even. So he just sold out of it. This was like, I don't know, 2011, 2012 or something. So whenever I bring up AMD, he hates me bringing up AMD. But this is what it means to be a long-term compounder. I mean, if you look at Nvidia stock, I was looking at the chart the other day before earnings. Like, look at the stock chart itself on the max. You have to go through almost 20 years of pretty much nothing. Pretty much nothing. Look at this. So it IPO'd in 1999, 4 cents. This is after all the splits. I mean, it was at 4 cents by 2014, 14 years later. You're at 47 cents, but it's a good return over 14 years. It's not like crazy. And then most people did not buy it at IPO, right? Most people bought it here at like $6 in 2018, $4, $5. Then it basically stays flat for another 2 years. Then finally it ramps up in 2021. So if you bought it at 6, it goes to 30, you're up 5x, but then it collapses back down to 14. And then this is where it runs, right? This is where it runs. Now, the thing is, most people buy it right here. So that's why they're concerned if it goes up or down right here. But if you bought it anywhere over here, I mean, you're chilling, bro. And hopefully this is what Palantir stock chart looks like in a bit. People buying it here, even at $30. One day it's at 200. And it's like, well, we don't really care if you bought it at 30, 25, 27, even 35. It's like, well, it seems like the stock continues to go higher. So this is kind of what you have to deal with. 313,000% all-time for Nvidia. AMD, kind of the same thing. It's a lot of compound appreciation after waiting. Look at that. A lot of bumps in the road, but ultimately you get a chart that looks pretty exceptional over the long term. So that's what we got in the context of Nvidia and AMD. Last thing I will say, and then we'll move on. We have 3 minutes into the market open, so I'll just finish on this point, and then I have a lot of stories after the market open. Dell earnings. Did Dell have earnings already? No, Dell has earnings after the bell today, right? Yeah, Dell has, I think it's after the bell. They report already? Dell? Yeah, it's after the bell. So today after the bell. So Dell, Ulta, Marvell, Lululemon, MongoDB. Today's going to be a big one after the bell. We'll look at Dell earnings. We have to talk about CrowdStrike, Salesforce, Palantir. There was some new news this morning, and then OpenAI's $100 billion valuation. We'll talk about all that after the bell. Last thing I'll say is Jensen was asked about the hyperscalers. This was the only question I cared about. And this is what he ended up saying on that question. It was kind of the same regurgitation of the points he's already made, but his core thesis was like, hey, there are so many use cases around AI that the hyperscalers need to keep spending. So basically one of the analysts said, why should we still believe your clients will actually make money from the money they keep giving you to build out their AI infrastructure? So the ROI question. And Jensen says, generative AI is a new way of doing software. Machine algorithms are becoming more efficient versus human approaches. Every company needs to adopt that. Frontier models are growing rapidly in scale. He said, quote, if you double the size of a model, you need to double the amount of compute to train it. He said more model makers are becoming prevalent versus the same ones like ChatGPT. There's now image models, video models. By the way, I think I'm finally understanding the benefits to Perplexity. I was using it last night and it kind of clicked for me. I've kind of been anti-Perplexity, not because I didn't think it was a good company, just because like I didn't think it offered that much of a value prop versus Google. Last night it clicked for me. I looked up NVIDIA Q2 results on Perplexity and I got an overview of everything that happened. I looked it up on Google. I get a bunch of links and I was like, oh, that's why people like it. It really clicked for me at that moment. It really did. And so I do think like a company like Perplexity that did 1 billion queries over the summer, they're going to get more people that just decide to use it. And that's going to create even more demand for compute to be able to train. And that's very important. Then he said general robotics are now becoming the physical manifestation of AI in the real world. And then finally, he highlighted how many different ways AI is going to save money for companies and be implemented, which is ultimately the reason that companies are preparing for this revolution and spending so much more on CapEx. So the biggest question I had to care about as a not as a shareholder, because I don't have a ton of Nvidia stock, but as someone who cares about AI and as a shareholder of Palantir, because obviously Nvidia deeply affects Palantir in terms of AI, CapEx, ROI, all that stuff, was that Jensen believes the ROI is real. And because he believes the ROI is real and it's coming and he thinks these hyperscalers need to invest more to recognize that ROI, it seems like their earnings estimates are not going to go down. And that's the most important thing for everyone who's investing in any type of tech or AI. Seems like AI is real and seems like Nvidia is at the epicenter of getting this to happen. All right, here we go. 9:30, the day after Nvidia earnings, Thursday, August 29th. Thank you everybody for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Nvidia's down 4%, and it's a relatively non-volatile market open for Nvidia. Ironically, everything is up besides Nvidia, but Nvidia's down. Where do you think the buyers step in? Where do you think the buyers step in? Put it in the chat. I think the buyers step in at 110 aggressively. If we actually get to 110, I think at 115, the buyers step in, but 110 is where I think, I kind of think the bottom ends up being 110. Now, I could be wrong about that, but if we dip to 110, I think people take a little bit of a swim in the NVIDIA dip. So let me know where you think the buyers might end up coming in. But NVIDIA right here, basically flat on the day. I mean, down 4% is not flat, but still flat from where a lot of the market thought it would be. We'll go back to NVIDIA in a second. Best Buy up 16%. They crushed earnings. We'll talk about Best Buy in a second. Robinhood, $20.42, up 0.49%. Palantir, $30.49. QQQ, 472. If you're just joining, we got GDP Q2 data, and it came in revised from 1.4% to 3%, which is why the market is really happy right now, because we're growing. We're going to get a rate cut. NVIDIA earnings were good, and unemployment seems to be stabilizing. So GDP growth at 3%, very, very strong macro news for the broader economy. Bitcoin, 60,307. SMCI, 457. That's up 3% after falling 20% yesterday. S&P 500, it dipped to 555 yesterday. This is what happens every time on NVIDIA earnings. You see downside momentum before they report. S&P falls almost 1 to 1.2%, and then they crush it. And although NVIDIA is not necessarily green right now, down about 3.5% at 121, the broader market tends to recover. AMD at 147, Reddit at 58. Affirm is up 25%. We'll go into their earnings as well. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, thank you for Rock and Ronnie putting this in the chat. $50 billion buyback. I forgot to mention. Wow, Affirm's up 27%. Affirm's at 40. Look at Affirm. Yeah, $50 billion buyback. You got a $50 billion buyback on NVIDIA as well. So if the stock really does fall to 100, I would imagine NVIDIA is the first company that says, hey, let's buy back some of our stock. CrowdStrike. We'll talk a lot more about them in a bit, but 270, the TLDR on the damage is about $100 million. And I actually think it's less than that, but like, let's assume it goes on for a couple more quarters than they guided. $100 million. I mean, if you were going to tell me that CrowdStrike would have $100 million guidance hit from a Y2K event, I would take that any day of the week, dude. That is absolutely incredible. So shout out to CrowdStrike, up 3% on the day. SoFi at 774. Look at that. SoFi's up 3.32%. Not bad on SoFi. Makes sense. We're getting the rate cut soon, so that's good for SoFi. Best Buy again at $100 right here, up 14%. Robinhood up 1% on the day, $20.52. Snowflake up 2%. Fortinet up 0.5%. Altria Group, this is the one that Steve loves a lot, 53.36. That's up 0.25%. That also pays a dividend of about 7.65%. XOM 117. Alibaba's up 1.7%. Where's IWM? Where are the small caps? There you go. Small caps green. Small caps are green, up 0.5% as well. SMCI up 3%. Nvidia recovering. There is a green candle. There it is, 122.9. It's down 2%. If Nvidia turns green, it is going to be the funniest thing ever, because you had a lot of people claim it was the biggest bubble in the history of bubbles. And if it goes green, they're probably going to keep saying it's a bubble. But still, I think those earnings, if you just came to the show, if you rewind for the first 30 minutes, we talked about why I don't think Nvidia is a bubble. And I think the street's stepping in. Look at Palantir. There you go. Back to 31. Back to 31. So 29 was the dip, at least so far, in the context of Palantir. I think we hit 29.70 on the lows. 31.06 right now. It's up 2.2%. Makes sense. If NVIDIA has massive GPU demand, that GPU demand is for training LLMs. LLMs is what Palantir implements into the enterprise. So the enterprise software adoption should be even higher if NVIDIA is getting momentum as well. Real quick on Palantir. So Palantir did have some good news this morning. Let me just share this real quick. We got the Forrester report to rank Palantir as the #1 artificial intelligence and machine learning platform. There you go, right here. So Forrester Wave, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat that are in tech. You guys probably know about this. This is something that IT consultants read. If you're a developer in the chat and you've tried to get your boss to like buy a piece of software, they're probably looking at these IT Forrester Wave reports to be able to evaluate it. It's basically the intellectual way of trying to rank a company. If you look at it right here in the cloud and data AI space, Palantir is ranking above everyone. Palantir is ranking above everyone, above Google, above Databricks, above Microsoft, all of them right here. So the quote was, Palantir is quietly becoming one of the largest players in this market, seeing a consistent, sustained growth rate in the past half decade by making its platform more accessible to users. I don't know if this is the reason the stock is up, but it's another reason to feel a little bit more confident in the AI thesis around Palantir. Again, it's one of the only SaaS companies, in my opinion, that has a massive thesis, and that's what's happening right now. Is NVIDIA green? Oh my God, is NVIDIA green? Oh my God, NVIDIA's down. NVIDIA is very close to green. NVIDIA's at 124. We are 1% away from green. Holy crap. 1% away from green on NVIDIA. NVIDIA. SMCI at 461, that's up 4%. S&P 500 up 0.5%. AMD is up 2%. CrowdStrike, wow. Look at Crowd. Look at the Crowd. Up 7%, dude. This was another one, dude. There are so many people that just like assume a company is dead because of headlines. I mean, the amount of people, you guys remember when CrowdStrike collapsed, the amount of people that were like, it's going to 200, it's dead, it's dead, it's dead, they're gross incompetence, blah, 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 blah. Dude, they didn't fail to file a report like SMCI. They had a bad mistake. It was a bad bug. It was a horrible mistake. It's one of those things that you have to evaluate and move on from. But to say it was going to zero, just like people saying NVIDIA is going to zero because they only guided for 32.5 billion, not 33 billion. It's like, what are you saying, dude? Like, what's going on here? How are we evaluating these companies? So CrowdStrike, incredible, dude. I mean, if you're in CrowdStrike, congrats. Nice stuff, up 7%. We'll see where the volatility goes, but you don't see an up 7% day after that guidance. That guidance was strong enough for CrowdStrike to get a little bit of a bid by the market. Ultra right here, 368, Nike at 83, Tesla's up 3.1%. So NVIDIA really carrying the broader market right now. HIMS is up a little bit right here. Intel at $20, up 2%. Celsius up 1.37%. Rocket Lab up 2.38%. Palantir continuing to gain momentum. Look at that, up 3% of the day, 31.30. Not bad on Palantir. Really strong growth in the context of Palantir. Good stuff for Palantir. SMCI up 4.72%. Robinhood up 1%. Where's SoFi? SoFi needs to break 790. That's the resistance on SoFi. If you break 790, I think it's running to $8. But it needs to break that. Now, the problem is buying stocks right now, given we're about to get into September, is a little scary. I'm not going to lie, because September tends to be volatile. The problem is, if you're just joining, the macro data we got this morning was amazing. It was just amazing. So you look at this macro data, September would have to have some really bad macro data. But again, GDP growth at 3%, initial jobless claims came in lower than expected. PCE prices came in lower than expected on inflation. Core PCE came in lower than expected. You just had so much good macro data. And that's probably why the street is reacting to it to be excited as well. Where's NVIDIA now? Can we go green on NVIDIA? That's the question. And so NVIDIA is down 2%. How many people think we flip green? Because I think going green would be psychologically amazing for this market, but I'm pretty sure there's some market makers that definitely don't want NVIDIA to go as green as it is currently right now in terms of its recovery. So what do you think? Dollar General is down. Yeah, I agree. So we'll look at earnings in a second. We have a lot of earnings to go through. Dollar General, they're down 23%. Again, this is not because of the consumer. I read Dollar General's report. I woke up at 8 a.m. I read the report because this was the first stock I saw that was down so much. It wasn't really about the consumer, dude. It was about other stuff. It was about the fact that people, like, if you're shopping at Walmart, you're not shopping at Dollar General. It's like you're getting kind of the same prices. It's a dollar store at the end of the day. People just aren't going there as much as they're going to other value stores. And so just like Nike, they have competition. They have to deal with that. But from what I understood, they're not blaming the consumer, which is bullish. So seeing a company like that down 20%, that's just the natural course of the market, not necessarily an indication of something going bad with the broader consumer. NVIDIA 1.73% away from going green. Best Buy, Best Buy is up. Best Buy up very nicely at 14%. We'll talk about their earnings as well. I've always loved Best Buy CEO. 90 days ago, they talked about AI making their retail operations more efficient. The CEO actually understood what the hell she was talking about when it comes to LLMs. So it makes sense that Best Buy is outperforming right now, up 14% on the day. Palantir 3107, QQQ at 474, SMCI up 4% of the day, SoFi 777, IWM not really that strong, especially if NVIDIA goes up. You tend to get a sell-off in small caps, so you're up about 0.5%, or 0.25%, but that's good for NVIDIA, because if IWM comes down, it means people are probably buying large cap tech. Where is NVIDIA? Where'd it go? Down 2.2%. All right, so NVIDIA getting rejected at 124. 124 is rejection. Where's PayPal? PayPal's green. PayPal is green. There you go. Up 1.4%. PayPal's green. Let's see. I mean, we got a long day ahead of us to see if NVIDIA goes green or not, but NVIDIA right here, down 2%. I mean, dude, given where it was yesterday after hours, down 8%, to see it only down 2% is pretty encouraging, and kind of it's a regular day for NVIDIA. You would imagine this is not even the day after NVIDIA earnings, given how the stock's performing. It's a basic day for NVIDIA. Now, if we see it flip green, I think the market goes green, but we got to see if it ends up going green. CrowdStrike still holding strong, up 6%. I mean, just incredible performance. And Salesforce. Now, Salesforce, There's some good stuff to say about Salesforce. We'll talk about them in a little bit. They're doing a lot of buybacks. Revenue growth is still constant. Their guidance is still constant, up 1.25%. I don't think it's a horrible buy. I just like it, dude. I would rather buy Palantir at $35 than Salesforce at $2.6. I just don't think it's a growth play anymore. You're really hoping they buy back about $5 billion of stock a quarter to get EPS growth for Salesforce. And I don't really think they have an AI vision, even though Mark Benioff yesterday was like, hey, we have this massive AI agent vision. And, maybe there's something there, but it's not that exciting to me. But Salesforce is up about 1%, which is good. It's a blue chip in the Dow Jones Index. You want to see Salesforce do well. And Salesforce is getting some momentum. Robinhood right here, $20.54. SoFi at $7.77. PayPal $71.62. Best Buy at $100.03. Robinhood $20.55, up 1.13%. Bitcoin 60,375. S&P 500 up about 1/3%. And then Nvidia right here at 122 on the day. Ulta earnings is tomorrow. We'll talk about, after the bell. After the bell, we'll have Ulta and Dell. Those are going to be the big ones that we look at. PayPal made an announcement with Fiserv Fastlane deal broadening partnership. Okay, that makes sense. Same partnership or similar partnership that they made with Adyen a couple of days ago as well. So nice to see PayPal continuing to work with other companies and broaden out their services partnership for consumers as well. Iren is up. There was some news about Iren. Yeah, it's up 20%. This is a Bitcoin miner that is also doing a lot of stuff in energy. I don't know exactly all the headlines. I'll go into them in a second, but this one did have a headline yesterday after hours around something more to do with energy than just Bitcoin mining, because a lot of the Bitcoin miners are playing in that energy space. And so that one is up 20%. CrowdStrike's running. Wow, look at that. Yep, there you go. Up about 5% right here, and then Best Buy here at 13%. Okay, let's talk about all these earnings. So let's actually go into some of these numbers and discuss what's going on in the context of earnings. Where's Palantir? Palantir right here, 31.05. So market's taking a little bit. You got a little bit of red candles coming out, kind of normal after the first 10 minutes of the market opens. Probably will last until 10 a.m., 10:30, and then we'll see if we can get momentum or if it stays flat to down on the day. So first, let's do CrowdStrike. Let's quickly do CrowdStrike, and then we'll do Salesforce. I saw this yesterday right before Nvidia earnings, because Nvidia earnings was at 420. So we had CrowdStrike first. And I mean, dude, I was impressed. I mean, I was very, very impressed. Had a feeling that CrowdStrike wasn't going to lower guidance that much. 2 weeks ago, I thought they would. And then after reading a lot of reports, I was like, well, it kind of feels like this thing is not that big of a deal. And ended up not being that big of a deal. 32% revenue growth, $3.86 billion in ARR. GAAP net income is up 500%. Operating cash flow of $327 million. First thing the CEO says is, hey, we worked with customers to recover from the July 19th incident. We emerged as an even more resilient and even more customer-obsessed company. I really liked him saying that. He basically said, hey, all of you guys thought we were dead, but this incident only made us stronger. It's kind of like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And he's saying, hey, we messed up. It was bad, but like, we're going to be a better company because cybersecurity TAM is only growing, and we're going to continue to gain more momentum. Now, in terms of the margin hit and the revenue hit, they said right here that it would be a $30 million revenue hit. So this includes an estimated $30 million subscription revenue impact in each of the remaining fiscal quarters as a result of incentives related to our customer commitment package. So basically, they came to their customers. Their customers were like, hey, wait a second. You messed up. We need, you need to make us whole. They said, all right, we're, in aggregate, we're going to lose about 30 million by giving you guys rebates. And that looks like that's going to be for the next couple quarters. Let's just assume it's 4 quarters. That's $120 million hit. I mean, dude, that's not $120 million. Come on, bro. $120 million after Y2K. People thought this would be $5 billion. It's just like, it feels like it was a massive overreaction, and the street's basically like, all right, we don't have to bring you back to $400 a share, but we definitely don't have to take you to $150 a share if it's only $100 million hit. So good news in the context of CrowdStrike. In the context of Salesforce, revenue of $9.3 billion, up 8% year over year. They bought back $4.3 billion of stock, which is incredible. Third quarter guidance of about $9.3 billion, up 7% year over year. Full year operating cash flow was raised from 23% to 25%. Mark Benioff says, in Q2, we delivered strong performance across revenue, cash flow, margin, and remaining performance obligations. We raised our fiscal year non-GAAP operating margin and cash flow growth guidance. The biggest problem with Salesforce last quarter was their lack of free cash flow growth, and that's why the stock was tanked down 20%. With our new Agentforce AI platform, We're reimagining enterprise software for a new world where humans with autonomous agents drive customer success together. Salesforce is the only company with the leading apps, trusted data, and agent-first platform to deliver this vision at scale and help companies realize the incredible benefits of AI. And so you got Salesforce saying, hey, we're doing pretty good as well. And if you care about the broader economy, Palantir right here at 3117, you want Salesforce, you want CrowdStrike, you want Nvidia, you want these companies to do well. Nvidia right here now down 3% on the day. 124 seems to be major resistance for them. So they're going to have to break that. So all the companies that we saw yesterday outside of Okta is a software company. I really don't know what Okta does. I think it's like cloud IT management, but they're down 17%. They lowered their guidance a little bit. We'll go into their earnings in a second, but they're down 18%. Besides Okta, which to me is just another SaaS company that's getting killed by AI, kind of, not really, but narrative-wise it's getting killed by AI more than like the actual business getting killed by AI. Outside of that, every other company did pretty good, and they didn't do too bad. Okta's identity management. Okay, so if anyone knows why Okta's down, let me know in the chat, because I just don't know enough about Okta. Is it kind of cybersecurity? Because if it's cybersecurity, if it's a pseudo cybersecurity and it's down 18%, that's not good. That means something, because cybersecurity is catching such a bid right now that you would imagine if it's like pseudo cyber, if it's even in that area, it catches a bid. So something internally had to happen for them to go down. But besides Okta, other major company, which is only a $13 billion company, pretty much every other major company, SoFi up 4%, 781, they put up big numbers. And those numbers were very, very, very important for the broader market. Salesforce up 0.5%. Affirm, we'll talk about them in a second. They're up 23%. Reddit up 2%. AMD up 0.5%. S&P up about a third. SMCI recovering a little bit at up 5%. QQQ up almost 1%. Then Palantir. Look at Palantir, man. Why is Palantir up? If the software applications of AI are going to become just as important as the hardware build out, then you're going to get companies like Palantir continue to maintain momentum. And that's why the street is going to continue to get excited about that. That's why the street is going to continue to get excited about it as well. Let's hear Dan Ives on AI and Nvidia and what his take was on this quarter as well.
You've been in Asia a lot, and you've been looking at the factories, and you've been talking to people who are the end buyers of some of these chips and the producers to understand exactly how much demand there is. What have you seen that gives you such confidence that this really is a takeoff story, even now, with some questions about how long the magnificent 3 or 4 U.S. big tech companies can continue to support it?
Yeah, we'll be going back to Asia on next week. $1 trillion of CapEx is what we see from an AI perspective over the next 3 years. You go back 6 months ago, we thought that was $500 billion. And so every quarter, if you look at the underlying demand, not just from hyperscalers, but eventually what's going to be other enterprises, it's just starting. So all of our checks are showing demand's actually continuing to accelerate. You know, as Farrell talked about, yields are improving from a production perspective, that they're the only game in town. Use cases are coming through. We saw that with Palantir. You see that with ServiceNow. Now this fourth industrial revolution. Rome wasn't built in a day, neither will AI revolution. It's starting to come together. Anyone that thinks this is hype, you listen to conference calls, Nvidia, AMD, Microsoft, Palantir, and others. I mean, I don't know what watch party those bears are, but they're not listening to the calls that I am.
You say it's LeBron at high school. Why isn't it Zion Williamson? Why couldn't we end up with a situation when we actually get real competition and it just doesn't do that well anymore? How big is this moat around this company?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. Right now, only game in town. AMD and obviously Lisa Su and others are going to benefit. The reason this is a LeBron in high school is because they are so ahead of any other competitor. And right now, they're the only game in town. The new gold, the new oil, it's AMD chips. And when you come away from that conference call last night, and I get after hours and bears will come out, but there's nothing that makes me think that we don't have a year from now or less. You have $3-4 trillion market caps. Godfather of AI and Nvidia. What's happening in Cupertino with the AI super cycle starting off on iPhone 16, and what's happening with Nadella and Redmond.
Dude, I fucking love Dan Ives. I love this man so much. This guy, not only has he been consistent, you can agree or disagree, but he's been authentically consistent, okay? He's been consistent. Stock goes up or down. He has a thesis, and that thesis stays pretty stable. So that's one of the reasons I love him. The other reason I love him is because he keeps mentioning the darling of AI that no one is mentioning other than him. By the way, we got to play a CNBC clip from yesterday. Palantir got some really good praise, which is Palantir. And he keeps saying, wait a second, guys, Palantir 31.45, baby. Let's go. He keeps saying, hey, wait a second. There's this software company that no one's talking about other than me meaning Dan Ives himself, right? He's the only mainstream analyst that's actually talking about it. And he continuously says, if you think about AI and NVIDIA, you've got to think about the use cases that prove NVIDIA has a moat. And theoretically, if Palantir doesn't have any use cases for their enterprise software clients with AI, then NVIDIA doesn't have any use case for the GPU. The GPU only matters for the model. This is why Karp keeps saying ontology and chips. If there is a model being deployed via Palantir's ontology, Palantir catches a bid while NVIDIA catches a bid. Robinhood at 2047, Bitcoin up about 2%, Palantir at 31.39. Where is NVIDIA? NVIDIA recovering just slightly at 122.86. So from that perspective, I mean, look, I think Dan Ives is right about this. I think this whole LeBron in high school analogy also makes a lot of sense at the end of the day. And I love that Palantir, as Toby says right here, is starting to be said by everybody now. And it's very important. The fact that he mentions Palantir really does matter, dude. At the end of the day, we are in our Palantir bubble. A lot of us own Palantir. We like Palantir, but the mainstream media does not talk about this company the way they talk about NVIDIA and Palantir. And I put out a video a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, it was a 30-minute video outlining my thesis for why in the next 5 years, Palantir will be talked about as much as the hyperscalers are talked about right now. Because I think it's going to be that good of a story. It's not even Palantir becoming that big of a company. It's going to be a media story that people are going to love to create narratives around. And that's going to lead to a compounding growth effect in terms of broad-based brand awareness, which will ultimately lead, in my opinion, to share appreciation as well. And that's what you're seeing right now in the context of NVIDIA. If NVIDIA goes up, if NVIDIA performs, it is bullish for Palantir because Palantir will be a proxy name that is compared to NVIDIA. AMD right now, 148, Reddit at 57, S&P at 559, Palantir 31.37, Robinhood at 20.50 on the day. Some people are saying, why is Robinhood not going up as much? So here's my take on this. And I think I've been pretty consistent about this. I think the market needs to confirm we're in a bull market for Robinhood to go up. Again, Robinhood cannot go to the moon, which to me is $25. It was at $24.50 in July, unless the market definitively prices out a recession. Although I think the macro data today was amazing, although I think the NVIDIA earnings was amazing, unfortunately, we are entering into the worst month for the stock market. And that's a little bit of reality we need to have in the euphoria that we're seeing today. And we're heading into an election cycle, and someone might win who's going to raise corporate tax rates by 28%, which theoretically is not going to be good for earnings per share for companies. And so you still have a lot of volatility, and Robinhood's a bull call in the market. And is what it is. If the market is not bullish, Robinhood can't get appreciation. Maybe one day in the future, they're going to be more diversified. And I think they're making steps for that. But right now, you need the market to be definitively bullish. And right now, we're not fully there yet. We got to get through September and October, I think, to fully be there. The good thing is Robinhood has earnings in November. And I think they're going to crush August. I think they're probably going to crush September. July, they already crushed, which means we might get another 40% growth quarter after the election is resolved, after unemployment data is resolved. And then we might enter into this November, December rally. That's going to be huge for companies like Robinhood. So I think for that one, it's more taking time. I like it at $20. My price target is 25 for that. But I do think we need a definitive bull market confirmation for Robinhood to do well. You've got Amazon here at 172, Tesla at 212. Tesla, nice uptick, up 3.5% on the day. CrowdStrike still holding strong at 6.27%. Okta still down 18%. PayPal up 2%. Best Buy up 12%. IWM basically flat on the day as NVIDIA gains more momentum. And SoFi touched 780 on the day. Now it's 776 right now in the context of SoFi. Apple. Let's talk about Apple. Apple's up 2%. Thank you for mentioning Apple. Who mentioned it in the chat? Oh, George, thank you for mentioning Apple. I put Apple in the title and I didn't even talk about Apple. So last night, we got some news on Apple, folks. We got some news on Apple. And that news was that more people have stopped eating bananas, aka androids. And specifically, the reason we think they're not getting as much potassium and they're getting whatever thing is similar to potassium inside of apples. I don't even know. What do you eat an apple for? Like, I know you eat a banana for potassium, but like, what do you eat an apple for? Apple orders over 10% more iPhones for AI-enabled models. This broke last night at 12 a.m. Apple is increasing its initial iPhone orders by over 10%, telling suppliers to prepare components for 88 to 90 million units, up from about 80 million last year. That means they're ordering 10% more material for the iPhones because they think they're going to sell 90 million iPhones versus 80 million, which is why the stock is up 2% right now. Fiber? Oh, okay. So I guess you get fiber from an Apple. The company is betting on strong demand for its first AI-equipped iPhone set to feature generative AI capabilities. Despite robust orders, suppliers remain cautious due to competition in the Chinese market and ongoing U.S.-China tensions. Some analysts predict a modest recovery in iPhone shipments this year, with more significant growth potentially coming in 2025. If Dan Ives is right about this one, I think we've got to clap it up for him, dude. If Dan Ives is the only one I know that's been yelling that, hey, the Apple iPhone orders are more than expected, China's going to upgrade, people in North America are going to upgrade. Even I've been skeptical of an upgrade cycle, quite frankly, because I'm like, hey, is there really any reason for people to like buy some phone that allows Siri to talk to you? It looks like Apple internally believes there is a lot of reasons why people are going to upgrade. Look at the stock, dude, 231. I mean, I think that's a bit like expensive for Apple, a 34 PE, but the street is factoring in the fact that they think people are going to be eating up a lot of fiber. And if that's the case, you're going to be selling a lot of iPhones. So 231 ends up going to 250 probably by the end of the year if that upgrade cycle does happen. I think that's the biggest unknown. The other reason I was skeptical about the upgrade cycle is because if the consumer's struggling, no one's buying an iPhone. The data we're getting from retail sales, from GDP growth, from companies like Best Buy, et cetera, is the consumer's not necessarily struggling that much. Wow, CrowdStrike up 7%. Look at CrowdStrike up 7%. Not bad on CrowdStrike. But that's why Apple's getting momentum, up 2%. Not bad, man. Not bad. Where's the rest of Mac 7? Is the rest of Mac 7 getting a bid? Oh, yeah. Look at them. The only one that's down is Nvidia. Tesla's up 4%. Amazon's up 2%. Google's up 2%. Meta's up 1.6%. Microsoft up 2.5%. I think I know why about that. I'll talk about that in a second. I have a theory on why they're up. And then you got Apple up 2.27%. There you go, bro. There you freaking go. Not bad this quarter. Palo Alto's popping as well. Yeah, I would imagine after CrowdStrike. There you go. Palo Alto. Wow. Palo Alto's at where it was in the beginning of the year. Yeah, look. Well, it's just a little bit below. So the beginning of the year it was at 380. That's when it fell to 270. That's when Nancy loaded up. Never bet against Pelosi, man. Never get against Pelosi. By the way, the SEC, I don't know if you guys got this headline yesterday. They voted on a bill 3-2 for funds to disclose monthly what they buy and sell. So if that's true, and I mean, if I'm getting the wording of the bill correct, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to see what like Stanley Druckenmiller buys every single month. And it's not every 45 days. So if that's true, and I think the same applies to a lot of other hedge funds, I'm still looking at that, but that's the headline I saw. I mean, Nancy, we didn't have to wait that long. I think usually we got it pretty quick, but we're going to get a lot more data on what these funds are doing, which is good for more transparency. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to see more transparency as well. Wow, Palantir, 3160. 3160. Is all of this data bullish for Broadcom? Yes, I would imagine Broadcom is up a little bit right now. Yep, 2.5%. Broadcom, from the people that I've talked to, is a better play on AI than Nvidia from a valuation perspective and from a growth perspective. I don't know if that's true. You can do some research comparing them, but it was at 185, now it's at 160, still down from its all-time highs. People believe, or a lot of like semiconductor people that I talk to, they're like, hey, we think Broadcom is gonna like just outperform, given the valuation. Nvidia's at 3 trillion, Broadcom's under 800 billion, and how important Broadcom is in the supply chain of the chips as well. So it makes sense that one's up 2.4%, and then Palantir right here at 3154 on the day. SoFi can't get past 750. Yeah, let's look at the resistance. So or 780. It's at 781 right now. Let me look at the order flow on SoFi. Robbing it at 2054. And then we'll talk about Microsoft because I have a theory why Microsoft's up. So at $8, there are 247,000 shares waiting to be sold on SoFi. At 782, where it's at right now, there's 35,000 shares. So we need, there we go. We just cracked that. Okay, so someone just bought 42,000 shares. Now we're at 783. 783, there's 7,000 shares. It looks like that might get eaten up. We need a good couple million shares to be bought up to get into the $8 range. So, and that's not asking for a lot. So let's see if that could happen. But SoFi up nicely, 5% of the day. Really nice to see that on SoFi. Could you suggest some good ETFs? I'm gonna make a list on Webull over the weekend with a ton of ETFs and ton of like industry thematic ETFs. There's a lot of ETFs. If you like cybersecurity, there is Hack. That's an ETF we've been looking at. Obviously, the QQQ and the SPY is probably the most safest of the ETFs if you're long-term bullish on like America and tech. But I'm going to make a list over the weekend on Webull and just have like different list that we can look at of tons of different ETFs, because I've been looking at a lot more thematic ETFs as well. Here's one I made the other day, leverage ETFs. So these are all leverage ETFs. I would stay away from these because unless you really know what you're doing, because these are very volatile. But you've got the Apple Bear ETF, leverage down 2.1%. TSLL is up 7.35%. TJ&I, we sold some puts on TSLL the other day. So those should be up right now, given Tesla is up. If Tesla goes up, this one goes up 2x. Tesla NVDL, NVDL was getting smoked after hours yesterday. Now it's down 4%. Before it was up, it was down like 10% because Nvidia recovered a little bit. So these are a bunch of different leverage ETFs. And then you have MicroStrategy. That's up about 8% right now. MSTX, that's leveraged 1.75 against MSTR, which is up right now at 138, up 4.85% on the day. Wow, look at SoFi. It's trying to run to 790. SoFi's trying to run to 790. TQQQ, yeah, that's triple leverage on the QQQ. You've got to be super bullish American technology if you're buying TQQQ. A lot of these to me are also not long-term holds. These leverage ETFs, they're trading instruments. So like if you think Nvidia was going to crush earnings, you buy TQQQ, then you sell it if Nvidia rips. But you don't really hold it because, tech, when it goes through a downturn, and, TQQQ takes a really big downturn. So to me, it's more trading instruments than necessarily long-term holds on some of these. Palantir maybe making its way back into that $32 range, $31.70 right now. Nice on Palantir. Let me check Palantir's resistance, and then we'll talk about OpenAI and Microsoft. Palantir resistance at 32 is 12,000 shares. If we get the volume, Palantir is going to run. There's not any real resistance. There's not any real resistance at all. Where's CrowdStrike? Wow, CrowdStrike up 8%. Holy crap, dude. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all for CrowdStrike. Getting some nice momentum. Palantir right here, 31.68. Where's Robinhood? Robinhood 20.62. So there you go, up 1.5%. That's higher than where it was on Monday when it broke out. So nice to see on Robinhood. And then Nvidia right here, 122.70 on the day. Where's Robinhood resistance? Let me check that right now. Robinhood resistance to $21. So at 21, we're looking at, there's no resistance. We're looking at a couple thousand shares. The Robinhood is the same thing. It needs volume. There's no walls. It just needs volumes. But again, Robinhood to me, it's contingent on the market pricing in a real bull market. So the ups and downs on Robinhood to me aren't official until we really get definitive, election data, macro data, pricing out of recession, all that stuff, right? And so I think that's going to take a couple months, but to me, I think that makes it relatively cheap. If we get into a recession, is Robinhood at 20 a good buy? No, but then nothing's a good buy. Like CrowdStrike at 282 is not good if we get a recession. IWM at 220 is not good if we get Nvidia is definitely not good at 120 if we get a recession, which is why the focus on the show the past couple of weeks has been, are we getting a recession? Looking at all these macro pieces of data. And based on the data, it just doesn't look like it's going to be as bad as we think. Okay, so let's talk about OpenAI and Microsoft. Why is Microsoft up 2%? Well, and this goes into Nvidia. I saw this headline last night, and really, it was surprising. OpenAI is in talk for a funding round, valuing the company at $100 billion. This really matters. Why does it matter? A, because Microsoft, along with Thrive Capital, are going to be putting in another couple billion after already putting in about $15 billion into OpenAI. B, OpenAI was valued at $86 billion late last year. That's when a lot of employees sold their shares to private investors on the secondary markets. I think it was going for like $100 a share at the time. There's like a lot of platforms that show you what the price is, but that's where employees got a bunch of liquidity. So basically, investors that missed OpenAI when it was a nonprofit, they bought it at 86 billion, and some employees sold it at 86 billion, and they made life-changing money. And it is also reported that OpenAI is doing 3.4 billion in revenue, growing at 100%. They would get a valuation of 103 billion based on that 100% growth, but they are losing 5 billion a year. So even though their revenue is 3.4 billion and it's growing rapidly, they're still losing 5 billion. Why do they need to raise a couple hundred billion or a couple billion to be valued at 100 billion? Because they're not making any money. This is another reason why Palantir is so special and so important. Palantir is profitable. Palantir is worth less than OpenAI. You could argue that 70 billion is a little bit too much for Palantir, whatever you want to say on that perspective, but Palantir is profitable. They're not just making a model. They're actually deploying the model inside of real use cases to give real value to Tyson, BP, and Lowe's, and all these other companies. they're like accruing value of AI, and they're doing it profitably. So when I see OpenAI get $100 billion valuation, which is probably why Microsoft is up right now, and Microsoft is like, hey, we're going to dump even more money into OpenAI, and OpenAI is not profitable, even though they're growing, and essentially what they're making is a commodity. It's an LLM. Now, I think it's the best commodity out of all the commodities. I think it's better than Gemini and Claude and all this stuff. But let's not kid ourselves. It is a commodity. Well, then that begs the question, how big is AI going to be? I mean, if $100 billion is a reasonable valuation 5 years from now, you can't tell me NVIDIA at $3 trillion is not a reasonable valuation. If NVIDIA is the one that's making all the shit that OpenAI is buying with all this investor capital to be able to, get into their next leg of growth. If NVIDIA is growing at 40, 50%, you would imagine OpenAI is growing upwards of that as a software company. So I think it's bullish for the broader AI market. I think it justifies a lot of NVIDIA's growth, and it justifies Palantir's valuation as well, if OpenAI is going to catch this much of a bid. SoFi right here up 5% on the day, trying to break that 790 resistance. Stuck right here at 787 right now. I bet 20 NVIDIA stocks that will mention ontologies in the next 15 minutes. That's not a bad bet. Somehow ontologies will probably come up. Look at Bitcoin as well, 60,700, man. Bitcoin getting some momentum. So you got Bitcoin right here getting a little bit of a run, participating after NVIDIA earnings. So that's good. That's nice to see. SoFi up 5.5%. That's amazing. Think Real, keep up the good job, mate. You make my mornings. Think Real, thank you for being here today. Thank you everybody for being here. And again, thank you for everybody joining the stream yesterday. There's a really fun stream as we covered NVIDIA earnings. Palantir 3150, Microsoft 420, SoFi 789. Oh, wow. Think Real. I just read your comment before you said the super chat. Yeah, so you didn't have to send the super chat because I saw your comment before you sent the super chat. But thank you for this. Thank you. This is hard-earned $20. I really, really appreciate it. I do not take that for granted. Thank you so much for the super chat. And thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the stream. It really means a lot. It's really special. And I'm happy you guys are getting value from the stream. ASTS is up 6%. Okay, so Space continues to get a bid. Oh, that means Rocket Lab should be up 3%. There you go. Rocket Lab up 3.29%. SoFi, dude, can we fucking break $8? I am so tired of staying in the sevens. Like, it is time to break this, dude. It's time to get into the $8. I still have a ton of options on SoFi. Come on, bro. There's 50,000 shares at 790. Like, this is the annoying part about SoFi. There's so many damn sellers off every cent. That's why the stock can't get a little bit of juice. If the sellers just like chill out a little bit and let it breathe, they could probably sell it at $8 or $9. But they're so fucking picky at this 790 range. That's the problem. That is the problem. Amit, what app are you checking for outstanding bids and orders? So I'm looking at an order market flow. I'm using Robinhood. There's a lot of other apps that do it for Robinhood. You pay $5 a month and you can use it. If you're international, if you just Google it, you'll find like a bunch of websites. You probably have to pay a little bit, but you can access. It's the NASDAQ level 2 order book flow to see the buys and sells. Also, shout out to Tanner. Tanner had an interview with Dan Dolev yesterday. Dan Dolev is the Mizuho analyst on Coinbase, Square, Robinhood, SoFi. Big interview for Tanner. So definitely check out that interview on Tanner's channel. I think for like the first 30 minutes, they talked about SoFi. So he went in depth and explained why he is bullish with SoFi. So that was a great interview. And I kind of agree with a lot of his thesis. I think the market's just getting caught up in this tangible book value argument as a bank. And, the growth is there. The tech platform, I've never really been a fan of. I think if they can continue, if they can go the next quarter and just say the tech platform is reaccelerating, I think the stock explodes. That part has not been the best part of the growth story, but still, nonetheless, I think $8 or $9 on rate cuts for the pure lending business is not a horrible situation. Magusto627, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you for entertaining me every morning. Have a coffee on me. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that super chat as well. He was also bullish on Robinhood. Yeah, Dan Dolev has been a Robinhood guy for like 3 years, dude. He's been the earliest analyst I know in Robinhood. He thinks they're the next Schwab. So he's been very bullish on the Robinhood story. IWM at 219. Supermicro. Okay, Supermicro just lost all of its gains. That's red. Is Nvidia back down even more? Nvidia's down 3.4%. So Nvidia taking a little bit of a hit right now, getting a little bit of a 10 a.m. market turn down. That's what tends to happen. Rocket Lab at 629. SoFi here at 789. Microsoft here at 420 on the day. Okay, let's go to CNBC. Let's see what the suits are saying. Let's see their reaction to NVIDIA earnings. Again, we read the analyst projections. GDP growth was at 3%. For those that missed it, really strong GDP number. That's very good for the economy. But let's see what the analysts have to say about NVIDIA. Pretty much all of them were bullish on their price targets here earlier today. All right, so let's get some coverage on that. All right, now you guys are sending too many super chats. Thank you guys. You don't have to send this, but I really, really appreciate it. Amit, you are a great person. Thank you to ASD FSD. Love the stream, your energy and competence. Thanks for what you do and keep up the amazing work. Thank you guys for being here again. Just means the world. This is the coolest job in the world, right? This is for those that were here in the early days. It was the same energy when we had 20 people, literally 20 people. And so yesterday when we had 10,000, it was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I did text my parents. I usually don't text my parents when we get like a number, like a number on the viewers, but like I was like, I should show my parents this. They they think their son's unemployed at home all day, just messing around. I'm like, hey guys, we had 10,000 people, and my dad was like, very good. That's it. My dad was like, very good. I think maybe we need 20,000 people for my dad to be like, oh, really good. But we got a very good from an Indian father, which is good enough, dude. That's good enough. All right, NVIDIA reaction. Here we go.
In the results. The average price target for Nvidia now has risen by 3.8% since Nvidia reported earnings. Barclays' Tom O'Malley is sticking with a hold rating. He thinks the stock reaction is factoring a change in narrative rather than what he believes is likely just conservative guidance. But a lot of discussion around Nvidia's gross margins, as you guys were just discussing. In fact, when Nvidia's CFO, Colette Kress, answered Bernstein's Stacey Rascon's question on the earnings call on gross margins likely going to the mid-70s due to higher expenses tied to Blackwell, that is when we saw the stock take a dip lower by as much as 8% in after-hours trade. Of course, now we've seen shares recover down just about 3% right now. Dean Wilf.
Seema, great rundown. I wonder, what do you think was the most interesting takeaway from the earnings call? There was so much that was covered. I mentioned sort of the enterprise piece of it. And also the demand that they're getting from the Hopper chips and looking forward to Blackwell. I mean, how do you parse all of that?
Yeah, Dee, it was interesting. Given the stock is up 160% this year going into the report, everyone was expecting such a clean report. And I think on the call, investors wanted a bit more granularity from CEO Jensen Huang on the ramp for Blackwell. Yes, several billions of dollars in Q4, but how many billions exactly? So that level of detail wasn't given. Hopefully we'll get something when Jensen speaks at Goldman's Cornucopia in September. I also thought what was interesting was Jensen's talk about how AI compute just continues to increase. And so because of that, they need to spend more money on creating a much more powerful chip.
Right, and because of that, there's still lots of demand for Hopper. Seema, thanks so much. We're going to speak to one of the—
Again, Blackwell delay doesn't matter because NVIDIA is selling the goods, and you're going to settle for less than Blackwell because you need the goods. That is the growth story for NVIDIA.
The analyst who wrote one of those many, many notes this morning, Piper Sandler, Harsh Kumar, joins us now. He has a buy rating on NVIDIA with a $140 price target. Harsh, maybe give us more of the medium to longer term view. I mean, it's hard to pick apart this quarter, anything really, disappointing. But when you look out to 25 and 26, do you think that this demand is going to be sustainable?
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. We absolutely love the positioning for NVIDIA. And we think, we are telling people to buy the stock at the open on any kind of weakness and hold it for the long term.
Wow. Pretty, Piper Sandler, pretty bullish. They're like, hey, buy this damn stock. This growth, this pullback is an opportunity.
This is one of those unique companies that can have wings that basically take it for a pretty awesome growth rate through 25 into 26 and even beyond. The fact of the matter is that there's, Jensen says there's $1 trillion worth of old data centers that need to be converted to GPUs and a similar number of upcoming data centers. That's where your demand's coming from. In terms of the weakness last night, I was really surprised when the stock was down $8 or even $10 at a point in time. But I think those were concerns around the gross margin, like you guys were discussing in the program just before I came on. I don't think those are valid. You have to understand NVIDIA is ramping 4 brand new products simultaneously for high output. They've never done this before. These are new supply chain, new parts, and they're not ramping for cost efficiency just yet. They'll do that in 3 to 4 quarters and margins will settle out again. We think the law of large numbers will kick in. NVIDIA has been able to grow 100% plus for several quarters now. It's hard to grow when you're a 100 billion plus company at 100% a year. So I think that those numbers will come down, but the magnitude of those numbers will be still better than anything you can find anywhere in the hardware or software space.
Now, that last sentence is important. Two things. Number one, he said growth is going to slow down because you can't keep growing at 100% year over year. I think that's normal. So for all the bears or the people that are bubble, oh, NVIDIA's deaccelerating growth, it's like, no, they're still growing. It's just not growing as much as before. But like, obviously, you can't keep growing at 500%. Like that's not how growth works. Second of all, his argument is, where are you going to put the money? We talked about this yesterday. Saudis are putting money. The Japanese are putting money. Koreans are putting money. Indians are putting money. All across the world, big investment institutions are allocating capital to American companies, aka tech companies, aka Nvidia, because there's nowhere else to put the money. So if you sell Nvidia at 120, given all the growth they have coming up, where the hell do you allocate the capital? Like, what is, you put in a money market fund when rates are about to come down? And so I think from that perspective as well, that's probably why you're seeing it not down 10, 15%, because there's just not an alternative given the growth that NVIDIA is putting up.
Harsh, when you look at the fact that ultimately it's a hardware company rather than a software company, albeit with an amazing level of innovation and protection that comes with it, do you think the margin will come down at some point in the medium to long term or not?
I think the margin may come down a little bit, but I think what you have to understand is that these chips have a lot of software in them. They have software drivers, they have other things that basically have to work with networking, other software that runs on top of these chips. And so I think and then of course there's the systems level approach, which is NVIDIA's bundling its enterprise and then giving you the AI enterprise software. By the way, the software business is on track to hit $2 billion run rate by the end of the year. And then they have other software businesses as well. I think a slight deterioration from 75% in the longer term, but not too much more. You have, good companies in semiconductors now doing 60+% very easily, maybe even 65% gross margin. There's no reason why NVIDIA at the cutting edge, providing what the market needs, with a lot of software, with a lot of systems, complete approach, plug and play, cannot maintain 70% plus long-term margins.
Harsh, there's some people who believe that the inference part of developing generative AI could change the stakes a little bit. There could be more competition in that space. What do you think? I mean, you need GPUs for the training, but as generative AI moves to more use cases and applications, do you think that NVIDIA is vulnerable at all to some of the competitors trying to fill that space?
Yeah, NVIDIA derives a little bit more than 40% of its revenue, or right around that number, from inferencing today. And I can say that that's probably from lack of competition. And, there's another company, AMD, that's coming up with chips that are suited for inferencing. Long story short, I think inferencing will be bigger than training. There's no question. I've read estimates that suggest 70% of the market will be inferencing. But NVIDIA is suited for both. The chips can be used for both training and inferencing, and they can do that just as well. Now, AMD brings, I think, a better value proposition, but they are lacking in performance at the system level, which is why they made the purchase of ZT Systems to bring that board level and that rack level performance up. But it'll take them a year and a half to do that.
All right, so you got the analyst community again that just feels that any pullback makes no sense. And if you just look at it at a high level, SoFi 790, trying to break that $8 range, where are you going to put the money, man? Where are you going to put the money? You sell $100,000 worth of NVIDIA stock? Well, guess what? You've got a $100,000 problem. Where the hell do you put the money? And I mean, like, again, if you want to just save the money and just like protect it and have zero risk, there's opportunities for that. Just they'll get 3-4%. That's fine. But if you've been in it for a while, same thing with Palantir. When like if you have a good average on Palantir, if you didn't get in just for a swing trade, if you got in and below 25 average, even a little bit 25, 27, and you really see compounding growth, if it goes up $4 or $5, much less if you're up like 7, 10, $15 a share, if you sell it, you have a problem, which is where do you deploy that money? And if you deployed it in Palantir for AI software exposure, you have a really big problem, because I don't see any other company on the entire stock market that's better for AI software exposure than Palantir, even if you argue Palantir is a little bit overvalued. So if you want to argue NVIDIA is overvalued, I'm not going to disagree there, even though I do disagree. I think it's undervalued given this quarter's earnings growth. But I don't think that means that selling it and finding another place for the money is going to be easy, because where are you going to put something that's growing as much as NVIDIA or a Palantir? And so I think it makes sense to kind of hold on to the story if you're in it for a long time. Initiating a position here, like I wouldn't go balls to the wall and start buying it, 10,000 shares at 120. Honestly, this is why we talk about wheeling on the channel. This is where the option, I would sell puts. There's no need to have to buy 100 shares right now when you can get paid to buy 100 shares. I mean, let's just do an example right now. This is why I think TJ segments are so important, because I genuinely believe you should get paid to buy shares. Like one of my friends, he texted me the other day and he said, yo, I have 170 grand. I don't really need this 170 grand. What do I do with it? And I said, all right, when you get free, we're going to hop on a Zoom and I'm going to show you, he likes Palantir. He's pretty bullish on Palantir. I'm going to show you how you can get paid to buy Palantir if the stock goes to levels where you would be comfortable buying it at. And if not, you get to keep your money and the premiums and just get to hopefully make 1 or 2% a month on that 170K. By the way, he transferred that 170K into a Robinhood account. So, a lot of money, again, continuously coming into Robinhood. Oh, Vlad tweeted yesterday. We're going to talk about what Vlad tweeted, but let's look at the options here, right? So Nvidia, I'm looking at a sell put. The stock is at, what is that? It's at 119. I'm looking at a sell put 29 days out. Okay. And I'm looking at, yeah, dude, look at this, dude. If you like Nvidia at 115, the street's paying you $4.55 right now. I mean, so let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. So this is what I'm looking at right now on Nvidia. $115 put for a month from now. Again, 115 is subjective. Either you like 115 or don't. You like that part. I'm not making a judgment on, but if you like buying it at 115, or let's go even lower. Let's be even more conservative. You like buying it at 105. The street will pay you $1.80, which means your adjusted cost basis is 105 minus 1.8, which means your cost basis would be 103.2, which if we do the math, 120 minus 103.2 divided by 120, that's a 14% decline from the current prices, which means if Nvidia falls 14%, you would have to buy 100 shares. You would get paid $180 on 10,500 of capital. You would make a 1.7% return in 1 month, less than a month, 29 days, to have the potential opportunity to buy Nvidia down 14% from these prices. And your cost basis would be $103.50. So if you're bullish on a name, this is why I'm so excited about selling puts, because like if you want to scale into a position, you don't have to go balls to the wall and buy 1,000 shares right now. You can take your time. Maybe the stock market falls 4% in September and Nvidia gets down to 105 and then you're comfortable. Like you can't get mad if you're comfortable owning the stock at 105. If Palantir falls to 23 and I got paid to own Palantir at 23 and I get assigned 100 shares, I'm comfortable buying those 100 shares. So from that perspective, I think any weakness right here is an opportunity to scale in if you're excited about it. But nonetheless, you have to ask yourself, is there a reason for it to have this weakness? And if it's just the market being the market, then I think that's an opportunity where selling puts can help you take advantage. Did I say capital? I think yesterday I said crapital. What's collateral? I mean, guys, I've been talking for an hour, 36 minutes. Okay. Like you're going to get some weird pronunciations. This is selling a put, correct? This is selling a put. This is selling a put. Chad right here says, who isn't bullish on Palantir? I would agree. And again, if you're just joining, we had Dan Ives mention Palantir multiple times today when he was talking on Bloomberg. It's just so nice to see him talk about it, dude. Every single time. This is why when he put out the $25 price target in July of 2023, and he hopped on a Spaces with Arnie and I didn't really understand the price target. And I remember Arnie and I were on Zoom. We were sort of gaming how we would do the Spaces, and I was like, Arnie, fuck the price target. $25 is $25. That is irrelevant. This is the first time we were getting some institutional love, some real institutional love from someone who has the ear of the biggest investors in the world. So let's just develop a good relationship with the guy. Let's just talk to the guy. Nonetheless, the 25 price target was actually great. At the time, Palantir was not, it was really not growing. So it was hard to justify $25, especially Arnie. He's a very value investor type of guy. But Bank of America upgraded them. You got everyone upgrading them after the next couple quarters, and 25 seemed like nothing because the growth was going to be allowing them to grow into the valuation. So Dan Ives, again, can't understate how important it is that he comes out and talks about Palantir, because he simply has the ears of more people listening to what he has to say. And he's been right. He's been right. Price target at 25 back when it was $17 when he initiated it, made a lot of sense. Made a lot of sense at the time. And you need to have some foresight to be able to see that. Chewy, they had a good earnings yesterday. They were up 14%. ASTS is up about 7%. Rocket Lab up 3%. Nvidia now down 4%. Wow, SoFi. How come no one in the chat said SoFi's pushing 795? Okay, now I see the comments. Wow. Where is the resistance at $8? Let's see if that happens. Come on, dude. It's time for SoFi to move. It's time for this shit to move. It is time. SoFi, $8 is 200,000 shares. Okay, that's lower than 250,000 shares. So we are seeing a little bit less of a wall. What's 200,000 times 8? 1.6 million? Who has 1.6 million? Can he, can someone with 1.6 million just buy them up? Can we do it? Anyone have 1.6 million? Can you get the job done? I would do it if I had one. Dude, I would do it. I would fucking do it. I really would. But I don't have 1.6 million. One day, but not right now. So can't do it right now. But if someone, Michael, yes, Michael says done. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so this is what Vlad said yesterday. We'll go back to SoFi in a second. So the friend I told you about that has $170,000 in Robinhood, the reason they put that $170,000 in Robinhood, even though they're a bit older, so but actually, no, this actually applies to them because even though they're older than like the average like 20 to 25-year-old, we've got a wealth transfer coming, folks. We've got a wealth transfer coming. I don't know if that wealth was given to my friend, that 170,000. I'm pretty sure that's just like cash they had lying around because they do relatively well for themselves, which is why they have 170,000 just lying around that they could transfer into a Robinhood account. But still, Vlad tweeted yesterday, the massive wealth transfer is coming. Here's how you read between the lines, folks. Why is Vlad tweeting this right before Q3 is going to be over, or when we're 60% done with Q3? Vlad hasn't tweeted for like a couple weeks. He's not a big tweeter. He's not like Elon tweeting about every little thing that comes into Elon's mind. He's tweeting because those August numbers were fucking good. Okay, that is why Vlad is tweeting. And that is why I think he said the massive wealth transfer is coming, because he's probably looking at these deposit numbers, seeing my friend put in 170,000 into Robinhood in August, and he's like, damn, there's a fucking wealth transfer happening. I should probably tweet about it. And so I think Q2 is going to be amazing for Robinhood, or Q3. I think it's going to be amazing. Okay, $7.99. $7.99. Come on, bro. $8 we have on SoFi. We still have 200,000 shares. We still have 200,000 shares. So we need someone to get the job done. 200,000 shares. 200,000 shares. Come on, bro. I know someone in the chat has 1.6 million. I know someone in the chat has 1.6 million you could play with. Come on, bro. We got some whales in the chat. 1.6 million. Come on, man. Whoever had puts on Nvidia, well, they probably didn't print. Whoever sold calls on Nvidia, take some of that premium. Let's get this over with. Let's get this over with. Chat says I am not buying a bank stock. Oh my God. Well, this is the problem, dude. This is why this thing is still stuck at fucking $8, $7. Look, I think it ends the year at $9 because of the rate cuts. But again, the bearish thesis on SoFi is just that it's not being interpreted as more than a bank. I do think one day it will be, but as of now, they've not shown the growth to be able to not be interpreted as a bank. But the rate cut still makes me bullish enough. There you go, $8, folks. There you go, $8 on SoFi. Someone bought it, even though it's a bank. They bought 200,000 shares on good old SoFi. That's big, dude. That's big. We haven't seen SoFi like this at a very long time. My options today are worth $4,200. I want to sell them, but if we get to $9, it'll be worth $8,000. So I'm holding out, even though $4,200 would be very nice to just take in cash, but I'm holding out. I'm on the SoFi train. I'm on the rate cut train. Even though September is probably going to be really volatile and I probably should sell these options, but I'm on the stupid SoFi train. I say stupid in jest, stupid as in because the stock's just been stuck for a while. But $8 right here on SoFi. Let's see if it can hold it now. Let's see if it can hold it. Let's see if Anthony Noto bought them for you. Dude, that would be super funny if Noto put in a 200,000 share sell or buy. That would be so hilarious, bro. If Noto just got it. Probably Chris Patel. Oh my God. Let me see if I call Steve if he picks up. Steve's not going to pick up. There's no way he's probably in meetings. If I could get Steve's take on Nvidia right now, it'll be so funny. Let's see. Maybe he's on a lunch break. It's 10:30. Does anyone eat lunch at 10:30? There's got to be some people that eat lunch at 10:30, right? He's not going to pick up.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available.
Me and Steve were talking at 8 a.m., bro. We were talking this morning in a meeting. Fucking in a meeting. Fine. He's in a meeting. Oh, Steve just texted. He said, "I want to come on to say gaps get filled and then leave." Steve called me in the morning. He's like, "I have 3 words for you." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Gaps get filled," because he saw Nvidia was barely down in the market, and so he was just like, "You know what? We're good." He's like, maybe it doesn't seem like Nvidia is going to be in that big of a situation. He was the bull yesterday on the bull bear conversation. Chris was the bear. He was the bull on Nvidia. SoFi up 7% on the day. This has been the highest gain they've had, I think, in like 7 months now. 8% right here on SoFi. $8.02. Maintain that momentum. Where's Palantir? Wow, Palantir's still 31.40, dude. Palantir's still holding it on. Palantir's still holding. Where's Robinhood? 2035. Robinhood slightly up for the day. Bitcoin is down a little bit, but it's still up 2.5%. Berkshire Hathaway is still at $1 trillion market cap, I believe. The cruise lines are up 0.5%. Berkshire, 1.01 trillion. Palantir right here, 31.38. And then Nvidia basically flat on the day, down about 3%. Okay, where's the next resistance for SoFi? Let's see. So it's at 801. The next resistance for SoFi. You guys are saying 806. 806, there's 16,000 shares. Maybe on a technical level, you're saying 806 is resistance. But from the order book flow, there's not that much. There's not like a 200,000 share wall that I'm looking at. At $9 at $9 there. Yeah, $9, but there's not even a wall at $9. So if SoFi can keep the momentum, it could maybe hold on to this. But the GDP data again was pretty good today, which is why we're probably seeing some increased momentum on SoFi. Yeah, it's technical. There is a gap from 819 or so to 864. All right. Let's see if that happens. We do have S&P 500 news for Palantir on September 6th, which is actually also, don't we get unemployment data September 6th? So that's a big day for Palantir and the broader market. Look, if Palantir gets into the S&P, I'll be ecstatic. I'm just at low expectations because, the market's the market. And the committee is, whatever the committee wants to be. But that would be exciting for Palantir. I think the committee is also thinking, hey, some of the names we picked over the past year, maybe Palantir deserves them more. So that would be bullish. That would be awesome. We'll see if that happens. But we'll also get the jobs data September 6th and see if that plays out. I'm getting it from Robinhood. The momentum resistance data, it's for $5 a month on Robinhood. You can get Robinhood Gold, and that's where it has all the data. Salesforce is down. Okay, Salesforce is down. It's down slightly. It's basically flat. Where's CrowdStrike? Is CrowdStrike still down? CrowdStrike's still up. Sorry, 6%. Dude, CrowdStrike. Congrats to CrowdStrike. If you really bought the dip on CrowdStrike, congrats. Took some balls to buy that dip. There was a lot of FUD out there. Seems like the guidance just isn't being affected as much as people thought. Where's IWM? Is IWM up? IWM, wow, up 1%. TNA, leveraged, up 3%. All right. So IWM's up because NVIDIA is not really recovering that much. It's down 3%. If NVIDIA goes up 3%, IWM is probably going to fall. But NVIDIA is up right now, or is down right now. What is your price range of Robinhood in the next coming years? I think in the next 10 years, it's a triple-digit stock, easily. I think the growth and their innovation is just incredible. I think my end-of-year price target is 25, but this is one I thought of it as a trade when I bought it at 7. Now I'm thinking like, no. I know too much about this company. I know their balance sheet inside and out. I know exactly what would cause a bear market for Robinhood and what would cause a bull market. So I think I can time the buyings of the dips, not as horribly as other stocks, just like Palantir. I think I understand, Robinhood like Palantir. And I want to go long on Vlad, dude. Like, just like Carp. Like, I like 2 founders that fucking don't give a fuck and that are ruthless and they win. They fucking win, dude. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. It's funny you're bringing up Robinhood. I forgot to. All right, this is going to freak out some people, but regardless, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to say it. I had a dream about Vlad last night. I had a dream about Vlad last night. And he asked me, dude, it was the craziest dream. This is how you know I'm not making this up. I said, we were in some like apartment or something, and we was with a bunch of other people. And he was like, he has like he almost finished his math PhD. So I was like, Vlad, what's like 748,364 divided by 4,795? And he was like 34. I don't know if that's right or wrong. And I was just like, holy shit, dude, this guy's smart. This guy's really smart. And then he asked me a question and I couldn't really answer it when it came to math. I was like, what's 10 plus 5? I was like, I don't know, 14. Like, I was like, the thesis of the dream was I sucked at math and he was like this super genius. And then I woke up. I'm telling you, dude, that was the dream. That was the dream. Like there wasn't anything more than that. That's what I remember from it. But I remember being in an apartment. It was him. I think it was some of the other employees there. And I think some of the employees were from the event I went to in the March event. I remember some of their faces because I got to talk to a good amount of the product designers and managers and all that stuff. And we were doing math questions. And I don't know how it popped up, but it popped up. And that was the dream. I can't make this up, dude. I literally can't make this up. But that was the dream I had last night. So yeah, I want to go long on Vlad and Carp. SoFi right here, $7.99, Nvidia 120. All right, let's go back to the suits. Let's see what coverage they have on Nvidia. What else are they saying? Oh, we have Mark Benioff on CNBC. Okay, so we have Salesforce. Here is Benioff on Salesforce's quarter. Here we go.
So much money wasted by customers trying to build their own AI. It's crazy what has happened. And some of these huge companies like Microsoft have told those customers to go train their own models and build their own models and then retrain their own models. Jim, we've built all that right into our platform. So you can build your model and train your model and fine tune your model in our platform. You don't have to go do that to some hyperscaler.
That was Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff on.
Hold on, let me see if I can find the full clip on that. Let me see if I can find the full. I actually want to watch what he has to say. I didn't know he was on Mad Money last night. Let's see. Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. Okay. I think we should watch this. because this is important for AI. It's important for software, and Salesforce is a very big company. So let's see his broader argument on AI here. Here we go.
And we're super excited to get you to Dreamforce because you're going to see something that we didn't even get to talk about a quarter ago, which is Agentforce and how we're transforming our customers with this incredible new artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, tell us how big companies are using Agentforce. I know already it's being employed. What's it doing for what's it doing for ADP, for instance, the largest payroll processor?
Oh, that's a great story. Well, Jim, we have deployed Agentforce now to so many of our customers, and we're so excited because what we're helping them to do is to deliver a level of automation with their customer service or with their sales that they've never seen before. And ADP is a great example. And Jim, we already run ADP's sales organization, but also their customer service organization. But now, Jim, when consumers call into ADP, they can actually talk to agents, not just humans. And that agents are resolving more than 90% of all of ADP's inquiries. That
means you fire some humans like Klarna did, and that means you technically become more efficient on Salesforce. We'll talk about Affirm after this as well. Affirm right now, 30%.
Very exciting. And we seen that same result in many of our customers. In fact, at another amazing customer that you know very well, OpenTable, well, they have 160 million consumers that are working with their service. And their deployment of Agentforce, well, it's also resolving more than 90% of their customer inquiries. And it's directly talking to those consumers as they have issues. So you not only have automation of the sales organization, the service organization, but now you have an extension of these organizations with agents. And why that's exciting, Jim, is this. For the last 2.5 decades, what Salesforce has done is helped our customers build a great sales force, a great service force, a great marketing force, even a great commerce force. And now we're helping our customers build an agent force. And this is a breakthrough thought.
All right. So this morning, my colleague David Faber, who appreciates your work greatly, was talking about Klarna, which is a very good company. I've worked with them.
I love David, by the way.
Who doesn't? Bell loves him. But that happens to be his mother. And we were talking about Klarna, and he mentioned, what, Klarna's now cutting off Salesforce. They don't need Salesforce. They're trying to figure out exactly what to do with AI. To me, that seemed like I'd like to know more. Let's put it that way, because what to do with AI may mean using Salesforce to do better with it.
Well, I think what customers are doing is transforming, changing how they use information technology. That's a great story. In fact, you probably saw on LinkedIn, Jim, that Klarna just posted how they're using Slack to deliver a whole operating system to run their company in a whole new way, using our new artificial intelligence capability that is manifested through Slack. Now, in the quarter, Jim, we delivered, since we're talking about AI, 25 trillion, that's trillion with a T, Einstein Transactions, which is this AI capability that's managing the agents and managing the predictive and managing the Slack and all of these capabilities to all of our customers. And we've powered more than 1 trillion workflows. That is accompanied by 250 petabytes of data. So that's across all of our customers, hundreds of thousands of customers. Each and every one of those customers is doing 3 things, Jim. One is they're automating every customer touch point. That's automating the sales organization and service and marketing and commerce and all those things that we've talked about for years as customer 360, right? The second thing these customers are doing is building a data cloud, because you need this amalgamated data to deliver this excellent, accurate artificial intelligence capability. And the third piece is they're delivering agents. And these agents are the next generation of artificial intelligence, where you're able to go out and talk directly to your customers with AI. So it's the AI talking to the customer themselves.
So Salesforce is a CRM, right? Customer relationship management product. So you would imagine these AI agents, by the way, SoFi right here, 802 broke 806 at one point. That customer facing product via the AI agent is something that they're going to integrate and focus on very deeply. Now, I don't like the stock at 250 billion valuation. I'd much rather buy other stocks here. Down basically flat on the day, down about 0.02%. But he's making a compelling case for the customer use case in terms of managing all that customer data, because again, it is a CRM at the end of the day being enhanced by AI. I am curious how exactly, this is the stock right here, it was at 274, then came all the way down to 250 last night. At the beginning of the year was at 280. How exactly they're necessarily monetizing this, and also where they think the TAM of that grows, and how much AI agents are actually going to be important for consumer-facing products like Klarna at the end of the day. Maybe it's very big, maybe it's not, but I am curious. They're only doing 7% growth, so it's not a growth story. It is a share buyback story. But I think we need to do a little bit more research into where the AI capabilities are and why that can't be commoditized, because I think that's the reason the stock's not up, even though, Benioff's talking about, well, we have trillions of blah, 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 because the market still believes it's a SaaS company at the end of the day that doesn't have an AI tailwind, and their growth, their guidance is not showing an AI tailwind. They're only growing by 7%. So I think that's kind of why he's saying funny stuff and fancy stuff that sounds good, but maybe the market doesn't seem like that's pricing in a ton of growth. SoFi right here at 802. We hit 805 at one point. Nice run, 7% on the day. I think an $8 close would be very, very bullish for SoFi. Palantir as well, 31.53. That's going well. Apple, 231, baby. Apple up 2.4%. Robinhood, 20.57. The only thing that's not really mooning is Nvidia. Everything else having a pretty good day. Everything else having a pretty good day right now. Dell is today after the bell. We have Ulta, Dell, MongoDB, a bunch of companies today after the bell. So today we'll have a ton of earnings to look at. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Salesforce. I mean, I think Benioff, he sounds good and he says a lot of interesting stuff, but I think a lot of companies are saying AI and they're, using the word trillion to talk about all the different queries and stuff. But where is the real value going? And is that commoditized? And is your SaaS business ever going to actually start growing upwards of double digits via AI? And I don't know if that's narrative is there, which is why the stock is, not down, but it's not up dramatically as well. Ulta's up 2%, Nike's up 1%, Tesla up 2.5%, Amazon up 1.6%. Let's go to Elon's Twitter. Let's see if he said anything. I was supposed to do this yesterday. I forgot to do this. So let's go to Elon's Twitter and see if he said anything that is super interesting. EV sales in China have now overtaken conventional internal combustion engines. Elon said, wow. He quote tweeted that and said, wow. So got some EV stuff right there. Let's go to his Twitter. This is his Twitter. So he said, that's good. There's a community note there. The source itself confirms this is not purely electric. This is hybrids. Okay. So Elon got community noted right there. Free speech stuff. Starlink is now approved in 105 countries. That's amazing. Talking about George Orwell, free speech. Starlink is now the biggest maritime advancement since the GPS. That's incredible. Grok stuff, free speech stuff. Okay, so it's still a lot of free speech stuff. So a lot of free speech stuff for Elon. SpaceX and free speech stuff. So he's not talking about Tesla. He's not really talking about Tesla that much. There's not that much buzz before this 10/10 event. We don't have any we're not hearing Elon talk about it a lot. Amazon right here up 1.67. But as long as that event's not delayed, I think that's going to be bullish. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream it because I'm going to be in India. So I will cover it. Not sure if I'll literally be able to stream it, but hopefully on 10/10 we wake up and you get a real definitive plan for this robotaxi. And we're out. Invitations haven't been sent out. I don't know. Has anyone got an invitation? Is it like, I mean, you would imagine some of the Tesla influencers would have got the invitation by now. So I don't know if it's officially out yet. I work on a boat. Starlink is a game changer. Yeah, I would imagine that's another bull case for the cruise lines. The Starlink is enhancing internet speeds so well for them. And it's helping cruise lines tremendously. So that's very good for people that are on the boat. India has no internet. It's not about that. It's about the timing, dude. I don't know if I think the event might be at like 2 a.m. and it might be hard to stream it. Now, granted, I think I'll have my own room in the place I'm at. I think I might be living with other people, so it might be hard to like stream at 2 a.m. But market open will still happen every day at 6 p.m. my time, 8 a.m. your time, Eastern. But the event might be closer towards the end of the day. Elon usually just sends me a text with the invite. I haven't gotten it yet. Interesting. So when he sends you the text, Bayray, let me know so we can get the inside scoop. But yeah, none of the influencers I know have said like they got the invite yet. Nvidia right here, 121. And so until we get the official invite, I don't know. Seems like it's still going to be waiting for a little bit. What else do we have? Check out NTNX. Is this Nutanix? NTNX? Is this? Oh, yeah, I know this company. So I have a friend who works here. They're up 18% today. Oh, my gosh. So my friend's stock, my friend should be very happy today. Did they have good earnings? That's why they're probably up. I don't know that much about this company. I know they're a software company worth $15 billion. I was talking to my friend the other day, and she works here, and she just started a couple of months ago. And she was like, oh, yeah, I work at this company, Nutanix. I was like, Nutanix? I was like, is that a public company? She's like, yeah. I was like, what's the ticker? And I looked it up. I was like, interesting. And I was like, so did you get a lot of stock? She's like, yeah, I have a ton of stock, and I'm just waiting for this shit to go up now. And so I don't know much about it. I'll deep dive into it. I'll probably try to get some insights from her. But yeah, it looks like a good earnings. Up 18%. Not bad. Another Indian CEO. Yep. I think the guy's name is Rajesh or something. He's been there since 2009. So he's been at it for a minute. $15 billion company, I think headquartered in the Bay Area. But yeah, I'll look into them. Looks like they had a beat on the top and the bottom line, which is why they are up right now. I think earnings was yesterday for them. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Yeah. Tonight after the bell, we have Dell, Marvell, Lululemon. I'm really interested in that one. MongoDB and Ulta. So those are 5 big earnings we have today after the bell. Robinhood breaking out. Where's Robinhood? Oh, nice to see. Robinhood 2064. Nice to see, up 1.55%. A close above 2050, I think, is very good for Robinhood. So that's what we have to get on Robinhood. And Palantir, dude, 3165. Palantir trying to make its way back to 32. Not bad. Bitcoin's up 3%. Well, that's probably why Robinhood's benefiting. Bitcoin, wow. Yeah, look at that. Flush to 57 on Monday. Now back at 61. The buyers step in, usually in that 57 to 58 range. There you go. Not bad. Why are you going to India? I have to see family. It's been 5 years. I'm excited to go to India. It's been a long time, but it does kind of mess up the schedule with streaming. But like, if there was one reason I would mess it up, it would be for India. I haven't been there in so long. Let your family see the real you screaming in the middle of the night. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I'm getting a phone call, folks. I'm getting a phone call. Here we go. Stephen Fiorillo, you're on the Market Open with 1,700 people and myself. How are you?
I just want to say 3 words.
Okay.
Gaps get filled.
What do you mean by that, Steve? What do you mean by that?
Do you see where we are?
I'm looking at Nvidia, only down 2% right now. Kind of feels like the reaction yesterday was a little bit too excited.
What did I say to you last night?
You said to me last night for 90 minutes that Nvidia is not a bubble and the street is stupid.
And what else did I say? That this is going to get to a point where people are going to step in and buy because this doesn't make sense.
So do you have 10 minutes? Can we talk for 10 minutes?
As long as nobody comes into my office,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you for being here, Steve. This is Steve. For those that are new to the channel, he is a friend of the channel. He's quite frankly the reason people show up to this channel. I'm going to put his Twitter and his Seeking Alpha in the chat. Steve, Nvidia crushes earnings. Stock goes down 10%. What was your initial reaction last night when you saw that?
I mean, it's the same reaction as Amazon. It was just ridiculous. People were looking for any little reason to try to make the bear thesis. There is, and I hate saying this because I don't like talking in absolutes, but at this current moment in time, there is not a bear case because the fact that guidance beats are narrowing is not a reason to exit the company. Give me one sec.
Yep, you got it.
Hello.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well, guys. Guidance beats, and I think that was Steve's big point last night, is like, hey, that's not a reason to leave the company. That is a reason to say it's not going to be beating as much, and you shouldn't expect as much volatility in the stock going up 30, 40% on earnings. But that's definitely not a reason to leave.
A week in revenue. That's not a bubble.
Say that again, Steve. You missed out for 30 seconds. Why is it not a bubble?
30 billion in revenue in 3 months is 10 billion in revenue a month and $2.5 billion in revenue a week. That's not a bubble.
So
revenue continues to grow quarter over quarter. That's not the definition of a bubble.
So we had a call last night, you, me, and a friend, and the friend was a bit more bearish, who said this is a bubble and that it's time for it. It makes no sense buying it at 120, 115. How do you reconcile that statement? Because he made some good points that you thought were good. How do you reconcile those arguments?
Yeah, I think that his overall fear is correct. And I think he's one of the smartest people I know in investing. And I just think our timelines are different. I've said that this is something I'm not going to be in for long. I like holding things 5-10 years. This is a 1 or 2 year thing for me. Unless FSD and robotics really takes off, I think that we're going to see a mass build out over the next 1 to 2 years. And the arms race and chips is not going to really slow down. And if anything, CapEx spend is going to increase. So I think they got a little bit of runway before it becomes a DRAM boom bust cycle the way the Micron was. And that's why I'm excited, because I do think NVIDIA's got room to run. I think that we have another 1 or 2 years before these companies really start monetizing their assets. But that could also change. My opinion could change in a week from now, 6 months from now. But from what I'm seeing on all the different conference calls, especially the utility companies, this party, I got to agree with Dan Ives at the moment. It's 9 p.m. and it's going to keep going throughout the night.
Okay, let's get numbers and valuations here. 46 PE. The bears say that's insane to be paying. What is your response to that?
They should learn how to read different company transcripts and stuff. I mean, that's crazy talk. So let's really think about that. 44 PE right now, 32 PE for forward next year, 28 PE for 2026. So 44, 32, 28. Let's look at a little company called Walmart. Just saying. Walmart's not growing at 40%.
Neither is Costco. So
you're paying 31 times PE for this year's earnings on Walmart, 28 times next year, and 25 times the year after that. I'd rather own Nvidia. Then you look at something like Home Depot or Costco. I mean, Home Depot's same camp in the 20s. Coca-Cola in the 20s. Where's Costco?
Costco 57.
So you're telling me that you'd rather pay 55 PE for Costco, or 50 PE for next year's earnings on Costco, or 46 times earnings for 2026 for Costco? You'd rather pay a higher PE for Costco than Nvidia. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, okay, another question here. This Blackwell stuff, this data demand stuff, basically all the analysts outside of DA Davidson came out today and they said, hey, Blackwell's a catalyst. Jensen said they're going to be doing billions of revenue.
Huge.
So what for the people that are like, oh, well, Blackwell's delayed, is that even a real bear argument?
No. if Nvidia's revenue came in at 20 billion and they missed, or 24 billion and they missed, sure, you could say that it's some type of catalyst because people are saying that they're going to hold off on buying copper because they're going to wait for Blackwell. That's not happening. People are buying copper and even the previous generation stuff hand over fist. The Blackwell delay isn't impacting anything. Companies are trying to get their hands on whatever they can get their hands on, so they're first to market with whatever they're going to build. And they're going to buy Blackwell as much as they can. And NVIDIA's going to have an order book filled for the next couple of years. And then you got to look at China. Got news for everybody. We're in an arms race with China, whether people want to admit it or not, when it comes to AI.
Explain that.
And,
What do you mean by that?
I mean, China and other countries are going to do as much as they can to build AI the same way that we are. And even though NVIDIA can't sell top-of-the-line chips to China, if order flows become open, I'm pretty sure that other countries will step in and pick up the scraps and whatever they can get their hands on, because it is better than whatever they can create and purchase domestically in their own countries. So no, I'm not worried about it at all. The only thing you have to worry about is at some point, these companies do have to monetize their assets. At some point, these companies are going to need to generate a return. The good thing is that all the CapEx spending is happening, at least with the hyperscalers and the big tech, from profitability. They're not tapping the debt markets for this. But Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, they also don't want to be beholden to NVIDIA. They are working on their own chips for certain things. I personally think that Amazon's chips that they're making are going to be for running workloads on AWS, not really training their models for generative AI. But be that as it may, they are looking to augment what they have to spend with NVIDIA with making their own silicon. And if you look what Apple did, Apple got rid of Intel, they got rid of NVIDIA, then they got rid of AMD. AMD was the last one to go on GPUs, and they do all their own same stuff. The problem right now is it doesn't look like any of these companies can actually replace NVIDIA's chips, but at some point, you are going to see a slowdown in what is being purchased. The $1 million question or the $1 billion question is at what point that slowdown happens. And I think that's where me and our friend have a disagreement. He thinks it's going to slow down quicker than I think it's going to slow down. Whereas I've been saying it could be 1 to 2 years, maybe 3 years, but then I think the slowdown's happening. He thinks it's going to be in the next couple of quarters. So if it's the next couple of quarters, this is going to, my entire investment thesis implodes. From everything I'm reading, I don't think that's going to happen.
I would tend to agree. And the whole hyperscaler CapEx build out, you think that spend is not slowing down either?
I have to go. I don't have any information other than what I read in the transcripts or listen to in the calls if I get to listen to them. And you look what Amy Hood said from Apple, you look what Zuckerberg said from Meta, and you look at what Jassy CFO said at Amazon. No, it doesn't look like it. And then you look at Southern Company, and I keep going back to utilities because I'm one of the people that actually goes through those transcripts, and I don't really see anybody else talking about this. Southern Company specifically said they have nearly 200 projects in their pipeline over the next decade. 40% of those projects are data centers. 80% of the electric load that they are bringing online in these projects over the next decade is going to be allocated to data centers. Southern Company is one of the largest utility companies. I believe it's the second largest holding in the XLU, the Spider Utility Index. If they are telling you that 40% of their upcoming projects over the next decade is data centers and 80% of the electric load is going to be for data centers, how can you not believe that there's a long runway of build out? Like, that's the end all be all. Forget about what a company may do or if they may guide down $1 billion here or $1 billion there on CapEx. When you have data centers signing up for future electric load and for future build out, that's a telltale that we're still in the early innings of this.
Let me ask you quick about Apple. Apparently they're ordering 10% more units. How do you feel about this stock?
I feel like nobody listens to me when I say Apple is going to keep going.
What is your what do you mean by that?
I mean, every time for the past 5 or 6 years, people get bearish. I keep saying they're wrong, and the bear case is wrong. And while Apple could retrace, the growth story is still intact. Look at services. Services is on track to have a $100 billion run rate next year. That's recurring revenue outside of hardware. And I do believe that Apple is going to shock everybody with Apple Intelligence. And it may not be right away, but you got to think that they're going to build in pay models in their services platform where you get baseline with your Apple product. And then tier 1 is going to be $5 a month, and tier 2 is going to be $9.99 a month. And they're going to make new tiers of Apple services where you have all inclusive with everything, or you have just if you want Apple Intelligence, but there'll be additional features you can only access through Siri, personal assistant, or whatever it is by paying a monthly fee. They're going to figure out a way to monetize this pretty quickly.
All right, Steve, last question. I got to ask you, SoFi's up 7%, $8. Any thoughts?
Nope.
Nothing to say?
Nope.
It's up 7%. You know, it's a big holding for you. So congrats. Not bad.
I mean, listen, I'm happy about price action, not happy about other things.
Okay, that is fair. Steve.
And I'll just say, because I haven't said it, I'll say it. I'm not happy that they are outsourcing the whole business banking thing. And that's really a sticking point for me.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Happy.
Steve, appreciate you. Thank you for some color on this NVIDIA call. You've been pretty consistent the past couple months, and we appreciate the analysis.
Say with me, gaps get filled.
Gaps. So
gaps get filled.
I was just gonna quote Matt Money in the chat, who said, "Can you fill his gap?"
No.
All right, Steve. Talk to you later.
This was down to what, 114?
Last night, yeah, 114. Yeah.
I told you the gap's going to get filled. People are going to come in. I said if it goes below 110, people are really going to step in and buy.
No, I said this morning. I said, hey guys, Steve said last night 110. That's where the buyers come in. So.
And it happened right before. So yeah, I'm not worried.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Steve. Talk to you later.
Later.
All right, there we go, folks. 122 on NVIDIA. Relatively bullish market today. Nothing too crazy. Apple just really surprising, up almost 3%. Bitcoin almost 61. Robin at 2055. IWM up about a 1%. CrowdStrike up 6%. SoFi hopefully closes above $8. That would be nice. Rocket Lab up 4%. Palantir 3170. Maybe makes a run back to 32. Just needs some more volume. MicroStrategy up 3%. TQQQ at 3.59, and then the broader S&P is up about 1% at 562 on the day. GDP numbers were good. Job unemployment claims were good. I mean, it was just the right macro data. It was just the right macro data for today. We got what we needed to see. And I think that's the conclusion to all this hype around NVIDIA earnings. It's done. It's finished. Good numbers. Muted reaction, kind of healthy for the market to be kind of muted and not have to worry too much about this one company determining everything. Stock didn't fall 10, 15%. It's down 3, 4%. Nothing that crazy. If it falls 10, 15%, I imagine the dip buyers come in. If you want to have an NVIDIA position, not a horrible day to sell puts and scale into it. But in general, from what I'm looking at, from what Steve said, it's not a bubble. You could argue it's overvalued. You could argue maybe it goes back to 90 or 85. I don't know if it's going to $40 or $50 because that's what a bubble would be. It just completely collapses. And if it takes a few years, maybe that happens, but definitely not in the next 12, 18 months, given the guidance that they gave for their top line estimates. So that's what we got for NVIDIA. All right, so that's it for me. We'll do word of the day, and then we will be out of here. Word of the day kind of sounds like what Steve just did for us, or how I would describe Steve in general. Erudite. Okay, I fucked that up so bad. Let me know if anyone actually could do that. Erudite. That does not look like erudite, but it's characterized by great knowledge. I would say Steve is an erudite. She impressed the interview panel with her erudite responses. Oh, it's like an adjective. It's not a noun. During the debate, his erudite arguments made it clear he had thoroughly researched the topic. Steve has very erudite arguments around NVIDIA, but no one in the chat called this erudite. No one. No, come on, bro. No, like it looked like erudite. It looked like erudite. Like, do you see that? Do you see that pronunciation say erudite? That literally looks like YOO, erudite. That's what it looked like. Not erudite. Goodness. That's what we got on the word of the day for today. All right, that is it for me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Fun stream. Thank you, everybody who sent the super chats. Again, today after the bell, we'll have a lot of earnings. We have Dell, Marvell, Lululemon, MongoDB, Ulta Beauty. So tons and tons of earnings left. I think this is really the last day of earnings. Tomorrow is Friday. We're pretty much done. So today's the last day. These are the last companies that are rounding out Q2 earnings. Macro data, GDP came in good. Unemployment claims came in good. Core PCE and PCE price index also came in good in terms of inflation. And broader markets today are up, even though Nvidia is down about 2-3%. So that's it. Not a bad day. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for joining the stream. We will be back at 3:45 p.m. on a big earnings. And again, thank you, everybody, for joining yesterday. 10,000 people live was a big milestone for the channel. Deeply, deeply appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And now it's time to just keep going. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. I'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everyone.